All right, it's a little past 6 here. I was actually on my way home, Pacific time, and my son FaceTimed me and said, Dad, Chris Paul's on the Thunder. And I thought he was messing with me, so I pulled over and I checked Twitter, and lo and behold, Woj has the trade. And here's the trade. It was Chris Paul to OKC for Russell Westbrook, and OKC also gets first rounders in 24 and 26 and pick swaps in 21 and 25. The 24 pick is lottery protected. 26 is protected 1 through 4, according to reports. OKC now has 8 first rounders that they picked up just since draft night, including one from Denver in that Jeremy Grant trade. So I have multiple thoughts. Let's go with 4. I'll go with 4 thoughts, and then we're going to get to the rest of the podcast that we have already finished. First of all, the rumors were true. We had heard for the last month that Chris Paul and James Harden were not getting along, that they did not get along for the second half of last season, and that Houston was anxious to move on from Chris Paul if possible. Houston denied it. Everyone denied it. We did a live show on Saturday at Caesar's Palace where Daryl Morey was a part of it. We did a live podcast. He was on stage with me and Marcelo and Joe House. And we asked him about what's it like when you're a GM and you read and hear all this stuff about your team and how badly things are allegedly going. What's your role as a GM? How do you stop it? And he was talking about how it was one of the craziest experiences of his career. He couldn't believe all the misinformation, et cetera, and did a nice job of selling us on the fact that it wasn't true. I got to say, obviously it was true looking back, because they just traded Chris Paul with a ton of picks for Russell Westbrook. And, you know, Westbrook has, I would say, a top 3 worst contract in the league. I was really curious to see how they would even trade him. We went through, Joe House and I, in the last podcast we went through all the possibilities of how this would work. And we talked about Houston. And I made the case, like, look, Daryl likes stars. If he feels like Westbrook is a better star than Chris Paul, he's going to make a move on him. I just assumed it would be like a straight up deal, and maybe there was like 1 first rounder thrown in. Houston paid a pretty big price here to get the worst contract in the league, or one of the 3 worst contracts in the league. Sorry. If you, Westbrook, here's what he has left. $38.5 million, $41.3 million, $44.2 million, $47 million. All right. So, do I like this deal for Houston? I do and I don't. That's such a cop-out answer. I don't like it because I actually thought if they could have figured out all the behind-the-scenes drama with their team, I think they were the favorites in the West. They were the most reliable bet. The Clippers and Lakers probably had a higher upside, especially in the playoffs. But we know what we had in Houston. What we had was a team that came very close to making the finals the last 2 years and lost to a historically great Warriors team. And especially last year, I felt like that was such a weird series. And, you know, they almost won game 1. They got really bent out of shape about the refs after. And I thought it actually hurt them in game 2. And they had just a great chance to beat the Warriors, and I felt like they kind of blew it. And there was obviously a lot of stuff going on with them behind the scenes. But I think if they run it back and it's drama-free, I still feel like they're the favorite. So this tells me it could not have been drama-free, that there's no way this was going to work. And the State Farm commercials are a lie, Jim Cunningham.
Yeah.
Jim's in here because Kyle's already gone. Kyle left. He was going to finish the pod. So now I have Jim Cunningham here. Yeah, now I don't know if I can ever trust the State Farm commercial again. I'm just kidding. We love State Farm. But what do you do with those commercials now? I guess that's another variable of this. We lose all of those. But they're better next year because I think Russell Westbrook, despite the salary, despite how weird he is to play with and all that stuff, he's just a better player than Chris Paul is. I voted for him second team All-NBA last year, and I didn't even think he was that good the first 2 months. I thought the last 2+ months he was really good. He's a walking triple-double or close as long as he has the ball enough. And I think this comes down to simple math for Houston. They're looking at somebody who has pretty consistently for 3 straight years averaged 28, 10, and 10 or whatever it is. And then a guy in Harden who's pretty consistently now above 30 and, 7 rebounds, 9 assists, whatever he is for an average last 3 years. And they're just like, if we have these two guys, we can figure out the rest. And short term, Westbrook is better than Chris Paul. It's a much riskier trade for them because if it doesn't work, well, Daryl gets fired, so he doesn't even care about those picks. But you've given away those picks way down the road when James Harden's going to be at post prime. Westbrook probably won't even be in the team at that point. And this is the ultimate win now trade. So the only reason to do it is if you feel like you can't bring Chris Paul back and you have no other market for him. Well, all right, why wasn't there another market for Chris Paul? Well, I'm glad you asked. He also had a terrible contract. His contract expired a year earlier than Russell Westbrook's, but he's also older than Russell Westbrook. And Jesus, these numbers, 38.5 this year, 41.4 next year, 44.2 in the 2021-22 season. All right, so why would OKC want this? Well, this is the case I made a couple of days ago to House. I actually kind of like having Chris Paul, at least for a year, on a young team in a city that, he had to play there for a year after Katrina when New Orleans moved to OKC for a year. The locals like him. He was great for them that year. He was great in the community, all that stuff. And, could he be a mentor / whatever for that team? Maybe. The other way they could be looking at it is they might flip Chris Paul now. And, Miami was rumored pretty heavily for Russell Westbrook for the last couple of days, and it just seems like they were at a standstill on what his value was. Miami makes a lot of sense for Chris Paul if they can just dump contracts for him. So now if you're OKC, you're dumping 3 years of Chris Paul and trying to get expirings and guys with 2 years left on their deal. Dragic isn't expiring. He makes, I think, $19 million. And you take 2 more contracts back and you call it a day. Then if you're Miami, it's like, hey, we have Chris Paul and Jimmy Butler. Cool. So I have no idea whether OKC did this to keep Chris Paul and make him kind of the leader of the franchise and the mentor, all that stuff, or whether they took him to flip him. Clearly, they wanted to do right by Westbrook. And Westbrook wanted a chance to try to win the title. So now he's going to a team that has another one of the best players in the league. And he has certainly a better chance to win the title than he had the last 3 years in OKC. What's really crazy to me, all right, so you look at the All-NBA team from last year, right? Or the All-NBA teams, I'm sorry, from the last 2 years. And all of the guys that have moved teams just in the last 2 years. So the first teamers from last year, Paul George already is on a different team. So is Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Kyrie Irving. Those were 3 second teamers. And then Westbrook on the third team and Kemba Walker. So we have 6 guys who are on the 3 All-NBA teams that were named 2 months ago are now on different teams, 6 of the 15. Then you go back to the 2017-18 team, just a year before. LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis are all on different teams from that group. DeRozan and Westbrook on the second team. Those guys are on different teams. And then on the last team, Paul George and Jimmy Butler. So 7 of the 15. This is just where we are with the league now. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I, as an old guy who loves watching continuity and really appreciates teams staying together and, what like a situation like what the Warriors were in last year where it's year 6 of Iguodala and Draymond and Clay and Steph and those guys all together. And they're gutting it out. Durant goes down. And the character that you build when you guys have been in a lot of battles together is probably my favorite thing about basketball. And we're just losing that now. We have a league now where the guy who has been on the team the longest is Steph Curry, who was in the 2009 draft, which was 10 years ago. And he is our longest terms of service guy. we're in a situation now where even Kawhi and Paul George commandeer this whole, Clippers thing, and then they don't even sign max contracts with them. They put the Clippers on the clock immediately. You have 2 years to make this work, and we might not come back. Dan Devine wrote about this for The Ringer. He called it the new normal. I think it's abnormal. I don't really like it that much, and I do wonder if it's a generational thing to some degree because the younger people love it. It's like a video game. The 20-somethings that work for The Ringer, they're all in. They think this is great. They're like every year they just shake the league like a snow globe and let's go. I definitely think it's better for a site like The Ringer and ESPN and all these places that get content for stuff. But as just a basketball purist, I think to just turn the NBA into AAU is pretty appalling. I just don't like it that much. And it's fun to see Westbrook and Harden on the same team for a year, and then next year one of them will probably go somewhere else. And that's just where we are. With that said, it's more fun to have Westbrook on the Rockets than Chris Paul. So from a fun standpoint, I like this trade, and it'll just make the league more interesting. Now, also, we get Chris Paul trade drama. We get to talk about where Chris Paul's going to go for the next 2 weeks, potentially. Keep giving us content, NBA. We need it. All right, so that was my first long thought. The second one is just that the OKC 2012 finals team that we thought we'd never see again, not out of the question now. Now we have Westbrook and Harden together. We have Ibaka as a free agent in a year. Maybe he comes back. And then Durant, that dude switches teams all the time. He's probably trying to get traded from Brooklyn right now to go to Houston. It would be fun. It's going to be fun, the Westbrook Harden thing. It's amazing that all four of those guys are now off that team. And we talked about that was the team of the future. I went to that NBA Finals. I think I went to every game. I took a picture of Westbrook, Durant, and Harden with their arms around each other. And I remember writing about this photo and just, this is the NBA in this decade. Like, you just never know. And now it's like on steroids, whatever my opinion was in that 2012 post-Harden trade column. It's crazy to think that OKC has none of those guys now. That was the young, if you could be any team, you would pick this team of the decade at the start of this decade. And now it's not. And now it's probably, now we're heading into this next decade, and you'd probably say New Orleans. And just like Zion's not finishing his career in New Orleans. I hate to bring it to you, New Orleans, but he'll probably be somewhere within 5 to 7 years because that's just what happens with the league. Third thing, what are the potential flaws of this Houston team? I was thinking about it from a standpoint of Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker, where it's like, hey, good news. We now have the 2 highest usage rate guys in the history of the league. You're going to stand over there. Like, they might as well just pull people out of the stands to be the 4th or 5th man, because Harden and Westbrook are going to take 80% of the shots. I already feel Eric Gordon, we might have to get him a therapist. He might need to talk to somebody. Eric, stand over in the corner. We're going to run a play for you every once in a while, maybe like once a quarter. That's it. But otherwise, stand over there. We don't need you. But if you just look at their 5, Westbrook and Harden, I personally feel like Westbrook's a top 12 player. Still, he's at least top 12, top 15, wherever you want to put him. He's one of the guys that still matters. So you have those 2 guys, Capella, Gordon, Tucker, assuming they keep Tucker. Maybe he gets traded too. That's a pretty loaded team. It's pretty good. If they get the good version of how this Westbrook Harden thing goes. Who the F knows? They clearly felt nothing else was going to happen with this nucleus unless they did something crazy. The last thing I wanted to mention, what a blow for Chris Paul. Pushes his way out of the Clippers to end up in Houston with his friend James Harden. They're up 3-2 against the Warriors in the 2018 playoffs, and he gets hurt at the worst possible time. And they end up losing that series that I personally think they probably would have won if he doesn't get hurt. But that's the NBA. It's what happens. And that's what happens when you have older point guards. signs the huge extension, takes a step back last year, no question. And then they come really close again. They get Golden State in round 2 instead of round 3. Durant gets hurt, and they still can't pull it off. It still doesn't happen. And now he's on OKC on a rebuild unless he gets traded. But what contender is trading for him? Everybody's, with the merry-go-round has stopped. You're looking at teams like Miami and Detroit and Minnesota. Those are the type of teams you're looking at if you're Chris Paul for a trade. None of the contenders, you're not ending up on them. I made a list, actually, of who I thought were the top 40 players in the league. I just did it for myself because I was curious where I would have different guys, right? So I had Westbrook. He was in that 11 to 18 range. You know, you were talking about, it's after the 10 stars. The Kawhi, Giannis, Harden, Curry, Davis, Jokic, LeBron, and then Embiid, George, and Durant. I think that's your top 10 right now in some order. I just gave you an order that I think it is. But then the next group is Lillard, Beal, Towns, Oladipo, Kyrie, Kemba, Butler, and Westbrook. In some order, depending on if you're just throwing out contracts from a talent standpoint, Westbrook's probably a little higher. If you're talking about them as assets, he's lower. So the Rockets have 2 of the top at least 18 guys in the league, let's say. The Chris Paul part of this list, it really goes until you're talking high 30s, low 40s, where like I have Blake Griffin, 32, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Al Horford, LaMarcus Aldridge, CJ McCollum, Tobias Harris, DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, Nikola Vucevic. And then he's kind of in that Kevin Love area. And then there's a bunch of rookies nipping on his heels. So is he like the 42nd best player in the league? Maybe. Is he worse than that? Maybe. You could have talked me to put him lower in the list. So it's an upgrade. And that's why you do the trade. I just feel like, man, I'm getting fired if this trade doesn't totally work trade by Daryl. You could feel it. You could feel the energy of him at the live show. She was guns blazing. He was going at Russillo. He was going at me. He was talking about Rocket haters. Like he was definitely a little unhinged in a good way. It was fun. It was enjoyable. But now we know why he was a little unhinged. He was trying to get Russell Westbrook. So I still don't think they're going to win the title. I think they're going to be a lot more fun to watch. I think what OKC did is just astounding, getting all those picks for one guy who definitely didn't want to be there and then another guy that they had to trade who had one of the 3 or 4 worst contracts in the league. Amazing. Amazing job by them. OKC. It's all looking good. I will tell you this, though. I wouldn't count out OKC as a playoff team. How about that? If they kept Chris Paul, they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they have Danilo Gallinari, they have Steven Adams, they still have Robertson, they have Schroeder. Like, it's not a bad team. It could at least be a little frisky. And this is the 5th and final bonus thing I wanted to mention. You might remember I've had the Ewing theory forever. Jim Cunningham, you know what the Ewing theory is, right?
Yep, of course. As a Knicks fan, I remember.
I can't imagine a juicier Ewing theory candidate in some time than Russell Westbrook. Media hyped superstar, considered to be one of the best players in the league, never really won anything. Made a finals one year as the second best guy in OKC. And is somebody that is just unclear if he's the best player on your team, if you're going anywhere. And it's also not clear if he definitely affects his teammates in a mostly negative for their stats way. So removing him after what we saw with like guys like Oladipo and Sabonis, removing him in the shadow and just how dominant he is with everything he does from that team, it feels very Ewing theory-ish, especially if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can continue to mature and whether they keep Chris Paul or whatever. But I have my eye on you, OKC, for the Ewing theory. All right. What a trade. If you want to hear more from the Ringer NBA show, you can listen to Chris, Ryan, Justin Verrier. They're doing a little powwow right now about this trade as well. Coming up, Cousin Sal. We taped this about 4 hours earlier. Sorry when we're talking about NBA MVP and stuff that we did not know this trade was coming, but that is coming up right after this. Let's take a break to talk about WGU, an online university that's changing lives by changing higher education. It's innovative, competency-based learning model designed specifically to fit in the lives of busy adults. Nonprofit, surprisingly affordable, offering bachelor's and master's degrees in business, IT, teaching, and nursing. Move through the material you already know. Spend the time you save learning what you don't know, which means the faster you demonstrate what you know, the faster you finish. And it is also about half the cost of most other online universities, so you can graduate with far less debt or none at all. WGU graduates work in positions of responsibility for leading companies like Microsoft and Amazon. I've heard of those. Even the government. Get your $65 application fee waived by going to wgu.edu/BS. wgu.edu/BS. All right, Cousin Sal is here. We haven't done this in person in a long time. You just happen to be here.
You know what? This reminds me that football was right around the corner.
Thought of you last night.
What
I did the
happened?
Instagram picture too. I put on my story.
Mm-hmm.
I saw I was in Barnes & Noble in the Grove, and they had the whole giant shelf of fantasy football magazines. Got a little giddy.
It's, I think, my favorite day of the summer when they are officially on the shelves, other than the day I nail my wife with my toenail, my sharpened toenail on the beach, and she screams in agony.
That happens every year.
I love that, and I love when the fantasy.
Why do you have a sharpened toenail?
I sharpen it for the 4th of July, and I paint different colors. It's nice.
You do cocaine on them or something?
No. Stop it. Don't be gross.
Yeah, so I thought of you with that. And then I thought of you because this is the worst gambling stretch of the years. You discussed on Against All Odds this week.
Yesterday was actually the worst day. Right.
It's the all-time one, right? Because you can't bet on the ESPYs. It's predetermined.
Right.
So what do you bet on?
Harry found the WNBA game. I think he lost money on the Mercury yesterday. But other than that, once the tennis is over in the morning, there's nothing.
That's true. The tennis ends by 3 o'clock? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nothing.
So I wanted to go backwards, and we're going to talk about NBA futures in a second, but just talk about another incredible batch of terrible bets from me and us together. But let's start with Kevin Durant not going to the Knicks.
Did that happen?
Adamant he was going to New York. At some point, I told you, I was like, every instinct I have tells me he's leaving Golden State and going to New York. Assumed it was the Knicks. That's the right assumption. The most famous franchise in basketball, other than the Celtics and Lakers.
Yeah.
Biggest city, 7 generations of fans, biggest challenge a player could have. Now he went to the Nets.
Yeah,
never even thought to be like, we should just hedge on the Nets just to be, what were they, like 20 to 1?
We kind of knew, yeah.
30 to 1?
Heads up there, somewhere in there. Or the Warriors, there was a nice odds on them. Well, let me backtrack even further. What typically happens every year is we lose money in football, and then we lose a little money on March Madness, and then we'll have like the Celtics over wins totals, and we'll have lost on that, and the NBA playoffs. But we're usually able to dig out. Like you had a Hail Mary with LeBron where he's going to end up last year, and we did it. We loaded. We didn't even tell House because like this will screw
we left
it up.
House out.
Yes, House can't be involved in this.
This year I won money on football though, and then I just proceeded to blow all of it.
The basketball.
We're terrible at this.
But that was it. All right, so Durant was going to be our go-to. We're going to make it all back with Durant to the Knicks. What do we have, like 4.5 to 1? No,
it was plus 250.
Plus 250.
It was great.
2.5
It was a layup.
Yeah. Right.
And the Nets were probably 20 to 1.
I can't kill you too much because everything I read says before the injury, you were right.
Well, unfortunately, that's not the story going on.
Oh, really? Right now you weren't right.
We were right. We were right until about March. And
that's it, March?
I keep hearing that Dolan really soured them in a couple of different ways, and the Nets were more and more on the radar.
Before the injury?
We're talking March.
Wow.
I think it was definitely either or. The Nets didn't really enter the mix until February, March because of Dolan just acted crazy in a bunch of different ways, remember? Did the whole thing about I'm not selling the story came out partly driven by me about I'm not selling the team, but then he gave that crazy interview and then he's like, I'm very confident we'll be good with free agents.
Right.
And then I think he might have said some stuff privately, but I think Dolan's the reason those guys didn't get them. You had the Nets on the other side. Mm-hmm. They're 49% owned by the Alibaba guy. They're just saying China, 50 million NBA fans. You guys can make so much money there. Rock Nation's like, hey, we can do this. And I just think they outwitted a
Can I
guy
tell
who's
you
not
what
very
they
smart,
need?
James
Well, what
Dolan.
they need is they need someone like Magic for the Lakers, but for the Knicks. Like, no one should ever see James Dolan. Like our friend Brad, he hires the special interest guests on our show.
Yeah.
So if like the Cincinnati mayor throws the first pitch and it goes 100 feet outside, or let's say this bagel boss guy, we want
Yeah.
to try to get this guy on, the first guy they have to deal with is Brad because he's good at tracking them down. But fine, great that you could track them down, but maybe you shouldn't be the first person they interact with representing Jimmy Kimmel Live, because that could really squash the deal.
Good point.
And has at times. So yeah, so they have, he's their Brad. He's basically their Brad.
James Dolan is Brad.
Yeah. In the TV movie, that's how it'll go too.
It's pretty insane that he's so bad that they just can't get anybody.
We're talking about Brad still?
Both
okay.
Brad and
Yeah.
Brad and James Dolan. But we should have known because this happened in 2010 with LeBron and those guys.
Mhm.
So the move should have been, I should have said to you, he's going to New York. I just have this feeling he's going there. And then we should have talked it out and been like, well,
Yeah.
wait, what about the Nets?
What other
Dolan will
teams are
fuck
in New
this
York?
up.
Does Buffalo have a team?
Yeah,
No.
we should bet
There's
against
one in
Dolan.
Brooklyn. Yeah.
So we lost that one. And then I made my last Hail Mary bet on Coco. I watched her second round match. The odds were great. I'm like, I'm in on Coco, another Hail Mary.
Mhm.
And then in 2 rounds later, she was a
I
15-year-old
loved rooting
girl.
for her. And
It was really fun. It was actually, that bet
Yeah.
was actually worth it.
And I think we'll make money betting her in the future. But when they hang 19-1 odds on her after the big upset, you're like, she's 15 years old, and they're factoring that in there, right in there. The fact that she didn't get tired was great. It's like, oh, that's nice. I look at Serena, and she's like in a fetal position after the first set sometimes because whatever, it's hot and she's older. But this is great. She didn't get tired. We did all the body language was working our way. But yeah, she's 15 years old.
And
That
a
killed
year
us.
older than my daughter. It was
Yeah.
really fun to root
Yeah.
for her. So yeah, that capped off, other than the NFL playoffs, which anytime the Patriots are in the Super Bowl and doing well, I'm usually going to do well.
Right.
But the 67-win Celtics thing was a debacle.
Right.
I wasn't allowed to bet on MVP, even though I was saying Giannis was by
Yeah.
far the best bet. That was a
House
debacle.
and I made something off that, but thanks to you. But
We had the Lakers over.
that
We
was
missed
bad.
that by 20 games.
Right.
And there was some other stuff, but this is brutal. So now we're going to bring in the NBA future
Let me just say
odds.
this. And again, I didn't know shit. I actually felt crap. Like, obviously, there's opinionists and they're journalists, and we're still opinionists, right? Or are you a journalist? What are you?
Who knows at this
I know
point?
it's so blurry right now.
Yeah.
But even you and I could pick a game that loses by 30 points, and it's excusable because we're using data and everything. But for experts to come on and say Kawhi is definitely going here, we're in this mind of this guy who doesn't announce it on Canada Day that he's going to staying with Toronto, doesn't announce on the 4th of July that he's coming to the U.S. He avoided all the pit bulls. He's smarter than everybody, and everybody was still in his head. All the experts knew who it was, and it just felt kind of shitty to me it was like a waste of time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, does journalism take a hit here, or is it just there's no accountability, so it doesn't matter?
Well, I think what's happening now is you can say anything that sounds like it's from a position of authority and it will get in the cycle.
Yeah.
So the thing I've always wondered is, when is it worth it for somebody to just roll the dice and make it seem like they know what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And if it happens,
Right.
Jalen
owned up to it at least. He's like, that was wrong. I got bad information, whatever. I didn't know about this extra wrinkle where a guy could sign a max deal and then demand to be traded to a specific team, and nobody knows about it.
But that's the thing, I felt bad for Jalen because he was right. I was hearing all the same stuff last week that he wanted to go to the Clippers, but they couldn't find another star, and they struck out on everybody, and he just wasn't going by himself. So it's like, at that point, who's left?
But you do it the right way. You go on Francesa and you're like, I have no inside information, but I think KD's going to New York. It all makes sense. Here are the reasons
Unfortunately,
why.
I said the Knicks.
You said the Knicks. Yeah, right.
I said, bet your house he's going to the Knicks.
But
Francesa lost his house.
He did.
I don't have a house. My house is gone.
I'm living with the horses in the stable. Back up. Yeah, I don't know. He's but you do have the disclaimer in the beginning. Like, I have no inside info. Maybe you could read KD's eyes when you fly up to Oakland to interview him or something. But beyond that, you're not getting anything. And I think just people are given a disservice when these guys come on. The other thing is, it was absolutely the only thing going on sports-wise. So people really dug their heels in and forced themselves into an opinion that maybe they didn't even believe,
Kawhi, whether he did it intentionally or not, he played it perfectly because everybody else shut their wad and decided, and then he got this whole week of Kawhi talk.
Yeah.
And then the Friday night, the earthquake combined with the Kawhi trade was really like a memorable day.
Yeah.
The Friday after July 4th, normally like just a fun July 4th's on a Thursday, which is great. Friday, it's like everybody has that day off.
And that's when you bury news, right? Friday night late. So yeah, he had it down perfectly.
I was stunned that the Paul George stuff never came out. Just in general, that he was even unhappy or thinking of jumping or anything. Conspiracy Bill has some thoughts.
What is it? Can you hear him?
I had always thought he was going to the Lakers, and they tampered so badly with him that he basically wasn't allowed to go to the Lakers. And this is just a Conspiracy Bill theory. Because everything I had heard for 2 years was a lot like the Kawhi stuff. Like, he's from here. He wants to come back. He wants to come here. And then for him to re-sign with OKC before July 1st was just so, didn't match up to anything. And it made no sense. So my theory a year ago was like, something's fishy here. There was so much tampering. They must have said, you can't go. So now he ends up not going to the Lakers, goes to the Clippers. He waits a year. Like, what made him unhappy in a year? I still think it's suspicious. So it'll end up being one of those NBA things we never know what happened.
Well, we do know that people don't like Westbrook and they don't not like LeBron. So in this specific case, which put him over the edge? Did he do anything to not play for the Lakers because he didn't want to be associated with LeBron? Maybe a little mix of what you're saying too, like he was told not to, whatever. Or is just Westbrook such a cancer and just like everyone's got to get away?
It seems like people like him though. Like Westbrook reminds me of my son, where people just get Stockholm syndrome by being around him. Yeah. He's like such a pain in the ass, but everybody loves him, but he's a handful. And I think that's what Westbrook's like.
Yeah.
I think you get, when you're in the middle of it, you don't even realize like, oh yeah, that's weird. That guy took 32 shots.
But he probably played like 15 games and realized I can't win a championship with this guy, right?
That would be my guess, especially if Westbrook slipped a little. Or he was just like, I'll play here for one more year and then I'll figure out how to get the hell out.
If Westbrook doesn't go to the Heat, the West All-Stars are favored by 15 points.
Oh, wow.
What's the opening line?
Does Westbrook hurt or help this?
Oh, my God. I don't know. Well, I don't. Yeah, you're right. Maybe that does hurt. Anyway.
The West, like Kemba's like an all-star starter now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the West, they always pile up. So the NBA futures, I've never seen this before. Really, ever since we've looked at futures, where
spread out like
4-1 is the best odds you can get on a favorite, or like the lowest odds. That's never happened. Right? Maybe it happened in 2006, but I don't.
When we were in
at
Vegas
least 10 years,
at
never
Caesars,
happened.
what was the Lakers 3-1, 3.5?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay,
I
so
think they were
before
even.
that.
Yeah, and this was before the Davis trade.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
so now before.
So it's Clippers 4-1, Lakers plus 550, Bucks same thing. Warriors 10-1, which is just absurd. Phillies 10-1, Denver 15-1, Houston 15-1, Utah 15-1, Celtics 30-1, Blazers 35, Brooklyn 40, Indiana 45, Dallas 55. Everybody else.
I can tell you, sportsbook wise, the sexy picks are Denver and Utah right now on that list. I think you like them. I think you like Utah's over wins. That people are pounding.
I'm not as high on Utah.
You're not?
I think Utah's better, but I actually think it's veered too far.
All right.
I've been thinking about their team, and it's a little too perimeter-y, and I worry about like they're missing one thing. They could also make a trade. There was a couple division bets, but not all of them.
Celtics, right? Atlantic, is that what we're doing?
It's on the back. Okay, there you go.
You know we're betting that.
I really like, so this is just my instinct mid-July. I really like Denver as a regular season team this year. I think they're going to be really good. They're going to build on what happened last year. They've usually been good at home. I like Jokic, MVP-wise, all that stuff.
I like the Jeremy Grant trade. You should still be mad at them. See, that's the thing. I'm still angry at them. Well, they lost me money at least. I forgot.
The Portland series?
The Portland series.
No, I thought we hedged that 19 different ways.
I know. And you know what? I hedged 20. I hedged one extra way you didn't know about, and I lost it.
Oh, no. Well, it's weird. Utah's even to win the division, and Denver's plus 160.
Interesting.
And I actually would have thought Denver would have been favored to win the division.
Right.
So I was surprised by that.
Where do they put OKC in there with this?
OKC 75 to 1 now.
No, for the division.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
75-1.
I guess it's not like they can sign anyone. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. If they turn Westbrook into somebody who is actually pretty good, I actually like some of the guys on that team. They still have some bets. Houston was minus 140 to win the division.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the division with Dallas, San Antonio, New Orleans, Memphis. I don't even know why we're talking about this because we lose division bets every year.
Yeah.
The Clippers are even to win the division. The Lakers are plus 200. So I thought that was interesting because I don't really see a scenario where the Clippers and Lakers are that good as regular season teams.
They're smart enough to figure out.
Kawhi's a 60-game guy in the regular season. And then people seem to think Paul George might not be ready for the start of the season. So
they just have to avoid each other
50?
For the first 2 rounds, right? Isn't that how, like,
well,
you
so
used to do that in wrestling. You'd wrestle 145. You see the tough guys wrestling 138. Like, all right, you gain weight to avoid it. This kind of, you just don't want to meet up in the first round or 2, right?
Yeah, because it ends up like what happened with Houston Golden State last year.
Right.
The thing is, like, this is why I like Denver at 15-1 and Houston at 15-1 to win the title, because I think they have the best chance to be 1, 2, or 3 seed. And you might see the Lakers, like, how many games is LeBron going to play? Yeah. This is year 17 or 18 for him. Davis has perennially been banged up or always had stuff. What would you say for over-under for games played by those two guys?
You know, it's funny.
Like 135, 130?
Oh, interesting. I was going to make it more specific in how many more games Kawhi and George play versus LeBron and AD.
Oh,
what would you say?
I would say less.
Really less?
Because I'm not sure George is going to be ready for the start of the season.
Really?
And then Kawhi is like 60 to 62, right? It's just, they have to do it that way. I would say over under. No, you have to ask Todd Furman this.
All right, I'll ask him.
I would say 130 for Kawhi and George. Maybe like 132, something like that.
So Lakers could be a little higher. Lakers. Wow.
I think Lakers would be like a 4-game favorite. Because one of those guys could just not get hurt and end up playing like 75, 76 games.
I think a lot of late season ticket holders are going to be disappointed. Not season ticket holders because they could see it every night. But if you have a spot ticket here or there for a Laker game, you're lucky to see both of them play together, right? I mean, it's 50-50, I think.
I'm on a gambling slump, but my Clippers ticket's not in a slump.
What do you mean? Oh, your tickets, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sell those to pay some of your gambling.
After holding the Clippers tickets for 15 years, and it seemed like Lob City was going to be the gold mine, and it never was. Then people didn't even really like watching those teams.
Right.
And now it's like, all right, this is a 2-year run where they have a chance to make the finals.
You could maybe finally rub it into our cousin who throws that back in your face all the time.
The Clippers
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I never understood that. I explained it to him 10 times, and it just keeps bouncing off him, going for the other teams.
I don't want to toot my own horn because I had nothing to base it on, but on July 4th, yes, we did lock it in on July 4th. I said the Clippers at 16-1 wasn't a bad bet. And everyone else saying Toronto at 6-1. I was like, no, if they don't sign Kawhi, Toronto's going to be 60-1. And they're actually 80, I think, to win it. The Clippers, you're getting a nice, at least they're fun to root for, even if they don't get Kawhi, whatever. It's stupid, but they pulled some upsets here and there, and they got him.
Maybe that's why they were taking so long, because Uncle Dennis went to Vegas and bought up some Clippers 16-1 for the Kawhi side. So
Dennis.
The other thing that jumps out to me here, the first 8 teams, there's 8 teams that are 50-1 or lower. Yeah. 6 of them are in the West.
Right.
To win the title. The Bucks are plus 550 in the East, and the Sixers are plus 1,000. That doesn't add up to me. So there's always has to be 3 teams in a conference that have a chance. So Celtics 30-1, Nets 40-1, Pacers 45-1. The Pacers.
Well, what do you mean? Where's Philly? Did you say Philly?
I said Philly.
Oh, you did. Okay. Yeah.
There's going to be a 3 seed that plays a not very good team in round 1 and then gets a shot at the second best team in round 2. This is basically the Toronto Philly path last year, where the 2-3 ended up going to the finals.
So who is it? Yeah, pick it.
You're gonna hate me. The Celtics 30-1. I don't think is a terrible bet.
Don't do it. Come on.
I don't think it's terrible.
Yeah,
They're
I
one
was
trade
surprised.
away. They have good players.
I texted you. I feel like we bet they're over on the win totals and lose every year. They won 4 to the last 5 years.
It was the
This
only
past
last year.
was the only one. But why are they going to be better? You just think?
Well, I think they're going to be better, but I also think they have, out of all these teams, they have a chance to actually package some contracts and picks together and try to get one more guy.
All right.
So I think the team they have right now isn't maybe the team they have in February. And if you look at these other teams, Clippers are the team they're going to be unless they can get Iguodala. Lakers are the team they're probably going to be. Bucks don't have a move. Warriors have a D'Angelo Russell trade, which I think is why their odds are low at 10-1. Because I think people are starting to wonder if they flip him in December for whatever. Sixers, I mean, it's a really expensive team now. I'm not sure what the move is there. But you go down the line, the Celtics actually could package somebody together. I just don't know who the player is.
Well, I don't know the packages either, and you're going to hate me for doing this, but people are sleeping on the Bucks, the favorite, and Giannis for MVP. Now the Bucks,
yes,
the one team they couldn't beat was this Toronto Kawhi team. That was it. Like they probably would have mowed through everybody on that side, and would have beat up this mash unit that Toronto was fortunate to face in Golden State. But all right, if you love Brogdon, that's one thing. But I kind of think they're getting better. They win 60 games. They had 45 wins by double digits. Giannis' numbers are going up while his minutes are going down. It's really phenomenal what that team does. Like I wouldn't sleep on them. That's a nice price for them early on.
And the motto would be LeBron 10 years ago.
Yeah.
He won in 09. Team 1 seed, did the whole thing. And then in 2010, he won it again. Not quite as good of a team as 09.
Yeah.
So we've seen it. Usually with the MVP, you win it. If it's a younger player, they usually win it in a cluster. So if they're going to win one, it might be 2 in a row or 3 in a row or whatever.
3 or 4.
He's only 3-1.
Right, I know. It's because he's going to win.
And I don't even feel like he peaked as a player last year. That was the funny thing about voting for him last year. It was like, I still feel like 2 years from now, he's going to be better than he is now.
Yeah.
So he's 3-1. Harden's 5-1. Curry's 5-1. Kawhi's 8-1, which is ludicrous. He's going to play 60 games. Davis is 10-1. LeBron's 10-1. Embiid's 12-1. Jokic 12-1. Doncic 15-1. And then it gets silly after that.
You could throw Davis and LeBron out of there because that's the classic cancel each other out thing. Right.
I'm going to flip it on you for a second.
Tell me how many games would they have to win for one of those two?
So here's the upside with Davis.
Yeah.
For the last 5 years, he was the guy most mentioned as who's the most likely guy to win an MVP out of all of these 25 and under guys. He was always the first pick, right? I think I even have stuff written in my archives back when I used to write from 2014. Somebody asked me that as a mailbag question.
Right.
Who's the next best choice for MVP after LeBron? I was like, Anthony Davis. So he's never won one. We know his ceiling is best player in the league, potentially. He's going to be in LA. He is going to have LeBron as the best guy he's ever played. This is the best team he's ever been on.
Yeah.
There's a chance he just kicks ass. This is why I can't count out the Lakers.
Just throw me numbers. Tell me how many wins the Lakers would have to have, and what his stat line would have to be versus LeBron's. Like, what would for Davis to win?
So realistically, because he did this 2 years ago, the second half of the season with New Orleans, realistically, he could put up like 30 and 13 every night.
All right. Wow.
That's a realistic stat line for him. And if LeBron,
that's already better than Giannis.
And if LeBron's doing the thing, so the upside, and this is why I like the Lakers regular season upside more than the Clippers regular season upside. I think the Clippers are a safer bet, but I also think there's a world in which Davis just crushes next season. And he's fucking awesome. Yeah. And that's the variable I don't think the Clippers have for the regular season. Right. So he goes and he plays, let's say stays healthy. He plays 80 games. LeBron is like totally happy just to be his sidekick and take over when it matters and do that whole thing.
What are you talking? How is that going to happen?
Well, this is his 17th year.
Look, Kyle's loaded up on painkillers right now. He can't keep a straight face.
You want to talk about Kyle's bike accident?
I kind of do. Shit. It's staring us right in the face.
Kyle is bandaged on both arms.
Everywhere.
He has a slight cut on his head. He has 2 fingers in
just
a
broken
splint.
pinky, that's all.
Are you missing a tooth?
You broke a pinky?
Yeah, it's all right.
And then what other injuries do you
I'd say
have?
just contusion on the leg, but it's all right.
So
Urgent
Kyle,
care check.
This is
me
a
out.
bike, like a Schwinn bike?
I'm embarrassed to say no. It's one of those, the ones you see zipping around.
Kyle does the bird scooters and the bikes.
Yeah.
Top
And he
of it
flies
fell off.
around. And these people are getting wiped out left and right
Right.
on the streets of LA. It's going wrong all the time.
But I had a faulty bike though. I didn't do anything wrong. The thing that I did wrong was getting on that one. The top.
So you
came
knew it
off.
was faulty.
Yeah.
The top
I didn't want to
came
be
off.
late for the pod.
Where did it go?
In the street. The top. It was loose. The steering column was loose, and I knew I shouldn't do it, but I was like, I gotta go. And I was just crossing this intersection, and the top just came off.
Wow.
I'm over the weight limit.
No
There's
drinking?
recourse.
No,
not at 9 in the
You know,
morning.
our friend Jake, who wrote with us on Jimmy Kimmel Live and then inexplicably became a doctor, says
Yeah.
he sees bird scooter accidents. He can't get out of the ER. He's like, fucking another bird scooter.
That's what they said to
accident.
me. They were like,
Million of
Jesus,
them.
we've had
So
5 of you
many.
guys today.
So many. Yeah.
Bird scooters are the new market inefficiency for ER.
You think they're in cahoots with them, or like
You've
for
been- it's
healthcare, or
replenishing hospitals.
something? Yeah,
So I like Davis at 10-1. I like Jokic at 12-1. The only thing with him is, I mean, that's a bet. You're betting that the Nuggets are the best team in the West.
yeah.
I don't know statistically how much room there is for him to grow. I guess it would have to resemble his playoff stats.
Mhm.
So it would have to be like in the playoffs, his stats were even better than they were in the regular season.
I
If he
guess
was
he
able
played
to
like
pull
a
that off.
6 overtime game in there somewhere.
Well, that's
when he
true.
was
That
exhausted.
probably helped.
But no, I could see him winning in the next 3 or 4 years. But man, this year is so tough with all those big guns at top.
And then Curry was the only one I had 5-1. Just the odds are too low. It's not good value, but
Mm-hmm.
could he just have an incredible year keeping the Warriors as, we counted these guys out.
Right.
Nobody could have expected this.
Yeah.
Steph Curry's never been better in one of those seasons.
But again, so you have to, aside from that Westbrook year, you have to end up top 2 seeds, right? So the Warriors how many wins would they have to
you'd have to hope everyone cancels each other
Yeah,
out.
right.
So you think with Davis, the roadmap is
I think
the
it's too
Lakers are
high.
even better than we thought.
Yeah,
He's 30-13 every night.
has to be.
And everybody's like, holy shit, this guy is now the best player in the West. We knew he
Right.
was good. We didn't realize he was this good.
But don't you think LeBron at some point was like, hey, calm down. We don't have to win all these games. We don't even have to
I
play
think
all these
LeBron's
games.
at a different point in his career.
Yeah.
I think he wants to win, but I also think on Wednesday at 3:30, his son's going to be playing a basketball game, and he's
Right.
going to, instead of doing the hyperbaric chamber for 3 hours, he's going to be driving to Sierra Canyon
Right.
to watch his kid play.
Interesting.
And so Davis actually helps him in a lot of ways. Davis can carry the
So who
burden.
rubs off on who is the question. Yeah.
Or do you think LeBron's just wired like our
That's-
cousin, where he's just has to work all the time?
I
Like
think that's
LeBron's
it.
like he has to just work out all the time.
Yeah, I think so. But also smart about it. Knows which seeds you have to avoid. And
Well, the
what you-
smart move is to ride Anthony Davis like he's secretariat these 6 months.
Right.
And just climb on that dude's back and be like,
Yeah.
if I were him, I don't know if he would do this, but you start laying. So here's the thing. Here's what we have to watch out for, because LeBron is the most manipulative in a good way athlete that we've had in a while.
Mhm.
Everything he does has a purpose. If there's a narrative in September that LeBron is going to get the MVP for Anthony Davis this year, this is a big thing. Like we should immediately bet Anthony Davis.
He'll back that. Right.
And if there's some Clutch narrative, or
I see.
Clutch has some reporter,
I see.
and then all of a sudden there's this big Anthony Davis puff piece, but the centerpiece of it is I want to win the MVP this year.
Right.
And then LeBron's on board with it in the piece.
Right.
We got to go all in on Davis.
So he's basically coach of the year too. He should have odds for LeBron
Yeah.
on that.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, it's actually a really good thing for LeBron if,
Sure.
he gets credit for he brought Davis there. Davis is the MVP. This is great.
Yeah.
I just don't like their team that much. I really did not like a lot of their moves.
You think Kawhi, I mean, you said he shut out the media. Did he shut out the lake? Like, you think that was all part of the deal too? I know you've talked about this, but
It seemed a little
they
intentional.
waited on it. Like, who are the Lakers?
It seemed a very Italian move by him. Are we sure Kawhi's not part
He is
Italian?
Italian. That's,
He was
his
very
first
Michael
name ends in a
Corleone-ish.
vowel. Yeah, interesting.
Kawhi Corleone Leonard. What about Wimbledon?
I like Joker. We have him on the pod. We all bet him. He's only 162 to win this thing. I think you go by grass. You look at what these guys have done on grass the last few times. And he's beaten Federer. He's the last 2 times in 4 and 5 sets. And I think he's beaten Nadal the last time in 4 sets. So if he wins tomorrow, I think that's good at minus 162. He'll be like a minus 350 favorite in the
So that's the
finals.
semis tomorrow.
Yeah, if he gets past that. Nadal,
I can't believe Nadal and Federer
I
are
don't touch
playing
that.
again.
You can't touch that.
How are they playing again?
I know. It's
When is
amazing.
that? That's 10 o'clock ET.
Well, you have to wake up a little early to catch
Good
that.
Lord.
But that'll be fun.
Then the women's Coco is out.
It's great, though.
I have a hot take on the women's final. I watched a lot of Wimbledon this year.
Mhm.
I think Halep's really good.
Mhm.
I think that was one of the reasons Coco fell apart was because Halep's just a machine.
She's one
She
of
was
the
like
best, sure.
painting the corners,
Mhm.
and she's never won.
Yeah.
And she does feel like one of those that has the talent to just be like, oh, she won a Wimbledon one year,
Mhm.
which seems like it happens.
Well, Serena's won like 8 out of 9 against her. So, and she's what, a 180 favorite or something. So we could do well betting Halep.
Is there a least fun person to wager on than Serena?
You feel
Where
it.
the histrionics and the sighing and every point looks like her body's going to break down, and I just never know how to read what she's thinking.
I liken it to our boxing bets. Remember we lost like 6 boxing bets in a row when we first met? Like we couldn't find that middleweight, we just couldn't figure it out. It's the same thing. Like you're feeling every punch with Serena because her body language is just, she brings you in.
She's just so exasperated and exhausted, and you're just like, oh my God, is she going to like pass out?
Yeah. She wants to kill the official more than win this match.
Yeah.
And God forbid she look over at her coach, she'll be fined or, penalize the point. So there's so much to worry about with her.
It's funny. Like you go back and you watch her in the early mid 2000s because they had some old matches on and I was watching her and she didn't do that stuff. It's definitely like, I'm old. She's almost become like one of those cops in a cop movie, the guy who's like, I don't have time for this shit anymore. Like that's kind of how she's, how she handles
she's a mother.
tennis.
Think about our wives playing.
Oh my
like
God.
just no patience at all, right? Why should I have patience with anybody?
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
No.
She's furious at her kid going out there. Oh, you have a parent corner, speaking of.
Oh, I do. I don't know if you have one, but so I'm home a little more. Locking in is over. I have like a month off. I can chill a little, but I forgot it means like being around the kids and they fight just all the time. So we promised them we were going to get one anyway, but we promised them we'd get a dog at the end of the summer if everyone behaved themselves, if they can keep the fighting to a minimum. Didn't work. They're at each other's throats like immediately, especially my 5-year-old and 11-year-old right after each other. So I was like, hey, you get 3 fights. And then this dog idea goes away. And they want a dog. They really do. They just don't know how to get along. And they don't catch themselves in time. So we counted down. Actually, I gave them 5 fights. So counted 5, really in the car. I'll yell 3 left. And like, what are we? We're second week of July. They're not going to make it another 6 weeks. They had one more fight. They got to 0 fights. I was like, that's it. No dog. And they're like, come on, please. They're begging me. I'm like, all right. Next fight, though, the dog loses a leg. We get a 3-legged dog, and I'm not kidding. And all right, fine. That lasted like 2 days, and they were fighting again. I was like, 3-legged dog. So now they've been good for like a week, and they're researching 3-legged dogs and how to care for a 3-legged dog and
real?
everything. And I keep saying, one more fight, a leg goes away, figuring they'll figure out that I'm joking. Now they're all in on the 3-legged dog.
And not fighting anymore.
And I'm like, I don't want a fucking 3-legged dog. How did this happen? How is this going to be worse for me? So they're doing honest research. Like there are like damaged dogs out there, which is fine. It's nice to care for the needy, but I don't know how this backfired. Like most things I point out too, but yeah, we're getting a 3-legged dog at best. If anyone has any tips on how to raise them.
My parent corner is my son is bored with all of his video games.
No.
And he's just played all of them. He created a baseball player for MLB named Alexander Hamilton. that has now just progressed and is the best player at MLB. And he's tired of Fortnite. Apparently Fortnite's not cool anymore.
Right. It's great. He's learning history though, right?
And I'd promised him years ago he really wanted Grand Theft Auto.
Oh.
And I was like, you're too young. That game's totally inappropriate. No way. And then last year, he's like, what about, no way. Now this year, he'd been good. I was proud of him for a couple different things. I was like, all right, we'll get it. So we get Grand Theft Auto. Might have been a mistake.
Oh, no.
It's the greatest game he's ever played in his life.
Oh, yeah.
He absolutely loves it completely. He can't believe he's never really driven before. He discovered how to just drive over the pedestrians and get the cops to chase you and all that stuff.
Is he the one that hit Kyle on a bird scooter?
He might have. So he's playing this game trying to see if he can get to 5 stars, which is basically like they've sent the entire SWAT team after you.
Right.
And it just might have been a mistake. I'm like, what about the missions? He's like, yeah, there's some missions, but I'm just trying to get to 5 stars.
Didn't he throw a remote through the TV or something?
That was like a year and a half ago. No, he
What?
didn't.
No, less than a year.
It bounced and
Oh,
ricocheted
okay.
and hit
All
the.
right. So,
hit the
but you
thing.
replaced it?
Are we sure it bounced? We know it bounced.
His story was that it bounced.
No.
It bounced off Bill's head into the TV. Oh, that's
So
great.
my son's playing Grand Theft Auto, and I'm sure I'll have some more stories about that.
What a summer.
By the way, not violent game.
No. I think they put a little rating on there. It's supposed to scare everyone away.
Yeah, in fact, it didn't scare off my kid. I mean, did I tell you the Big Mouse story?
No. I
We
think
found
so.
out he had watched all the Big Mouse. We didn't realize he was stealth watching all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this puberty talk at school, and it was the day before they knew it was coming, and they said some of the kids would have to ask a question. So I'm like, "What's your questions going to be?" And he's like, "I don't need to ask a question. I've seen every episode of Big Mouth. I know there's nothing about puberty I don't know."
Awesome.
I'm like, "Really? You're not going to ask a question?" And he's like, "I might ask how to clean up a wet dream."
Well, you need to bring the Ringer crew there if that's the case, if he's going to ask that.
So I was like,
Wow.
So I was like, don't ask that. Do me a favor. Please don't bring that up. So he did not ask that.
Oh, he
one.
didn't. Okay.
So yeah. So I feel like my son has learned puberty through Nick Kroll and Big
Right.
Mouth, which I'm not sure this is a good thing or not.
So you owe him. He hooked you up there.
The thing is, if we were 11, 30 years ago, we would have watched all of those shows. I don't know.
For sure. How can you stop it?
You can't stop it either way. You
And
might
also,
as well.
as soon as one of their friends is doing it, you can't, whether it's getting an iPhone or anything, you got to be the cool parent, right?
So
That
if anyone
sucks.
out there knows how to clean up a wet dream, email us at mailbag@theringer.com.
Or three-legged dog care. whatever.
Three-legged dog care, whatever you want. So you're done with locking in for how many weeks?
That's it. 4 weeks, in the middle of August, we go back. I came in second. I lost to Furman. Clay Travis,
So you kept it like a
Finished
season
third.
week after week.
week after week. We made, between the three of us, we made 2,200 bets and like 1,200 parlays. It's insane. Like my head started spinning once I saw it, but it'll be good to recharge for football.
Is there a strategy you learned actually worked?
You know
like
what?
The big ass long range parlays kind of are helpful, right?
The big ass, the big mouth, a lot of wet dreams to clean up on there. I took a lot of big swings there to try to catch up to Furman, but who always says, and I laughed at him, he says, you guys bet games. I bet numbers. Like you bet teams. I'm like, yeah, I don't give a crap if the Patriots are favored by 1.5 and it moves to 2.5. They're going to kill the Titans. Why do I care? But over the course of a year, it makes a difference.
And we're talking about going to Vegas end of August to do a big NFL preview podcast at our cousin's comedy club. Do you
Let's
think
do
they'll
it.
have us?
I think he'll have us. I think he'll have us the first Sunday too. He's trying to look at something.
I didn't tell you. I talked about it on the pod the other day about I had an epiphany with just Vegas
Oh no.
about blackjack there and how
Oh yeah.
all the shit they're doing to basically just take our money as fast as they possibly can. So I talked about it in the pod and got some recommendations from people, and this is like the bigger casinos are all doing this 6 to 5 thing now.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
they
you know,
used to
and
be
you split
apologetic
aces
about
one.
it. They don't now.
Yeah,
right?
they're just doing it. They don't even tell you. You just assume to know.
right.
But I got a couple casinos that don't do that,
Right.
including my beloved Treasure Island,
Is that right?
where I lost my Vegas virginity.
Wow.
Not my actual virginity, my Vegas virginity. We stayed there, and we stayed there a few times. But apparently, they are 3-2, split aces however many times you want.
Yeah.
They're basically rebelling against all these other casinos.
Right.
And then everybody else was saying Old Vegas.
Well, Old Vegas.
Old Vegas has all the old rules but people are really dissatisfied with this. Feels like this is a crisis point for Vegas, where I think everybody kind of feels the same way. Fuck you, you don't want me to win anymore.
Right.
Not that they ever wanted you to win, but at least the difference between 6-5 and 3-2 in blackjack is significant.
Well, especially the way you play. You play for 7 hours straight
Two
at one
hands.
tip. It's
Yeah,
not
it's-
like you
matters.
get lucky. I don't see one blackjack over 20 minutes, so it doesn't matter. But the way you play it is, I've lost like 6 times in a row playing blackjack.
That's
I can't. You've had some luck, but
No, I've lost the last 7 times I was
Really?
there. Yeah, dating to
what?
right after I left ESPN. You, me, and Jacoby went there. Remember?
Yeah,
And like
but I think- I
end of
thought
May,
you've
we
won.
all lost,
Uh-huh.
and I haven't won in Vegas since.
Yeah, it sucks. There needs to be a new game or something, and it's tough to switch tables because they're all full.
They're all full. They all have the same terrible odds, and So anyway, I have some. I haven't gone through all the emails yet. Thanks to everybody who emailed, but it does feel like there are still fun places to gamble in Vegas. I would also advise the casinos doing the 6-5 thing to just switch back because people fucking hate it.
Right.
Maybe they don't care,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. But it bugs me.
They make enough money. I think.
Yeah, I
somewhere,
think-
somewhere in there.
Guess
they
what?
make money.
You were doing great with 3-2.
Yeah,
Give
right.
us anything.
Yeah.
But-
you'll smoke cigarettes with half the nicotine that they pass around, right? If they give you 3-2.
I
back.
even smoked 2 cigarettes and still couldn't win on Saturday night. It was the first 2 cigarettes of 2019.
I love it.
It was so sad. I woke up the next morning. I had no money left. I had 18 cigarettes, and I'm like, do I pack these and give them to nephew Kyle? And then I'm like, no. Why do I want to give him like more cigarettes?
No,
I
don't
want him
do
to
that.
stop smoking.
Kyle,
not
no more
realize he
smoking.
was going to flip on his bird. But
It was a bike. It was a bike.
Bike, whatever. The Cuz.
All right,
So
good
Against All
time.
Odds, you can listen to that here, Sal.
Against
every
all odds,
week.
I have Paul LeDuc on this week. The degenerate trifecta and I go over MLB midseason props. Your Red Sox are plus 180 to make the playoffs. I kind of think they're going to get there. That's one of my bigger bets.
Plus
I mentioned
180. They're
Yeah.
only like, 2 games back in the wild card?
They're
game and
maybe
a half?
one game on the second wild card.
It's been between 1 and 2
Yeah.
being the second wild
right.
card.
So you need some guys.
It's a weird
proven
Red Sox
players.
season because statistically, offensively, it's actually as good of a team as last year. And
Mhm.
like Devers is much better than he was and stuff
Right.
like that. But
Closer,
the
closer
bullpen
spot,
has just
tough.
murdered us.
Yeah.
It really has. It completely swung the season.
Yeah.
But I feel like they could trade for a closer.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
We-
next 2 weeks.
I didn't ask you about Pete Alonso. I forgot.
Love him. He's the greatest.
Is this your first great Met hitter that your kids would like since you've had kids?
Well, David Wright, my
David Wright,
oldest
that's
caught,
right.
caught him on the tail end.
on the
there.
tail
But
end.
This is so much fun. But with the home run derby, you're so now accustomed to thinking this screws up your guy's swing the rest of the year. And then I'm like, what the hell do I care? If he wins the home run derby, this is like a top 10 Met moment. in
Right of the last
57
30 years.
Yeah. And I think it was. And then he singles off a Yankee glove in the All-Star game. So maybe he has to swing back. It's nice. It's fun to have a slugger on the team.
I enjoyed the All-Star. I liked how they mic'd the guys in the All-Star game.
Yeah,
I
that
actually
was good.
enjoyed that. They were talking to the left fielder, and then somebody hit a ball to him. It was, "Oh!"
Right.
It's like
Yeah,
right
which-
after.
yeah, oh, yeah, who was
that
it?
was
Yeah,
pretty
right.
funny, though.
Yeah, it was good.
The Cuz, always a pleasure. Good job, by you.
Good job by you.
All right, Kumail's coming up. But first, let's face it, guys are terrible at taking care of their health. Studies show 70% of guys who experience erectile dysfunction don't get treated for it, and that's bad. The thing most people don't realize is that ED is like a check engine light for a man's body. It could be an indicator that something more serious is going on, like a heart issue or diabetes. Well, Roman has a solution. They've created an easy, discreet way to get checked out by a doctor and get treated for ED online. It's a one-stop shop. Licensed U.S. physicians can diagnose your ED, then ship meds right from their pharmacy to your door. And with Roman, you don't have to wait in waiting rooms, deal with any awkward face-to-face conversations, or make any uncomfortable trips to the pharmacy. You just have to visit getroman.com/Bill, fill out a brief questionnaire, chat with a doctor, and get real FDA-approved medication if recommended by your doctor. All prescribed online, delivered straight to your door in discreet, unmarked packaging. Guys, go talk to the doctor. ED is a problem that guys don't tackle, but it's really important. And now with Roman, it's really easy to take care of it for a free, repeat, free online visit. Go to getroman.com/Bill. Kumail Nanjiani came in and we had an awesome podcast and talked about a lot of things. And I had been dying to have him on for a while. Here he is. All right, Kumail Nanjiani's here. I said that right?
Yeah, perfectly.
Because you had the whole thing when you first became famous. and you were saying like, my name is pronounced exactly how it looks like it should be pronounced.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's
So
yeah,
I sat behind you at WrestleMania, but you sat next to my son.
I did.
You were fanboying out big time for Bautista,
Yes,
but you had this beard, and I just didn't. I was like, that guy looks like Kumail, but I know it's not because he's just going crazy for Bautista.
Well,
and then he's leaving, and it was like, boy, that Kumail was really out of control. I'm like, that was him. And my son hung out with you for 45 minutes.
yeah, I talked to your son a bunch. He's very smart.
With wrestling.
But he really, because I'm just friends with Bautista. I am not a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
You know, I was like back when it was Hitman Hart and all that stuff in the 90s, but I haven't like kept up. So your son was sort of catching me up and telling me about some of the storylines and all that stuff.
Yeah, he's like the Stephen A. Smith of the WWE for 11-year-olds.
Is he really?
You know what I mean? He knows everything.
Yeah.
He was in because WrestleMania went forever. You were able to come in and out. It was like 5 hours, and he was just talking.
It was
to everybody.
more than 5
or
hours.
5.5.
It was like, well, with the pre-thing, it was over 7 hours.
Yeah,
and
true. We weren't there for that though, were you?
I was up in the box.
Oh.
So Bautista had like a box, so we were like hanging out in there, and then I went down for the match. They're very specific.
Yeah. Can't say fight.
I did an interview afterwards with WWE, and they would be like, "Hey, could you do that again? But instead of fight, say match, and instead of wrestler, say superstar."
Seriously?
WWE superstars. That's what they're called.
Well, the funny thing is Bautista got the shit kicked out of him in that match. That was a really violent match, and we were right there, and they were just beating the shit out of each other.
I was really scared for him because he's 50 years old.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's got his movie career is doing great. He's lined up like the next 4 movies, and they're all huge. And I was just like, why would you put yourself in this situation where you could like ruin this thing that you've worked so hard on? But it was really important to Dave that he end his career right. So when we were doing our movie last summer, he was like, you know, it's really heartbreaking that my career didn't go the way I wanted it to. I want to go back and end it how I wanted.
His wrestling career?
Yeah.
What didn't go right about it? He was a massive star.
From what I understand, yes. But apparently, I don't want to speak out of turn, but apparently he was a bad guy.
Right.
Heel, right?
Heel.
And he was very popular. And then he was so popular that they made him a good guy, and then he wasn't popular anymore.
Yeah, that ruined it. It's always better to just be the heel
Yes.
that the people like anyway.
So I believe then, again, not a wrestling fan, this is what I think he told me, he left. And then when he came back for his comeback, he came back again as a good guy. And again, it didn't quite work. So he was like, I want to go back and end my career as a bad guy because that's what people really want. And that's what he wants.
I think it's funny that you've been in my life for a decade and you grew this thick beard and I didn't know it was you for.
What do you mean?
I run a sports and pop culture website. But some people grow a beard and they just like transform into different people.
I grew a beard for this movie and I just didn't get rid of it. I'm going to get rid of it soon.
It definitely gives you like a little edge.
Yeah. I mean, you know, a part of me was, so I'm 41 now.
Yeah.
And I was always afraid of being old. You know, I was scared of when I hit 30, I was devastated about my age through all my 30s. And then when I hit 40, I kind of like suddenly actually felt better. I felt like this pressure was off or something. And so then I'd always...
you look like the Dos Equis guy now.
Thank you so much.
You should be flying around.
Is that the guy whose identity they hid? Like the actor? We don't know who he is.
Yeah, it's a mystery.
So now I grew a beard being like, you know what? I'm 41 and it's fine if I look like a grown man.
So why were you, because I felt the same way when 30 was coming, I was freaking out because I felt like I had all these plans when I left college and I'm like, I'm going to be 30. I haven't done anything yet. I feel like the biggest fucking loser on the planet.
That's exactly.
Is that how you felt?
That is exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I not a late start. I wasn't like Rodney Dangerfield or anything, but right after college, I went to Chicago. And the plan was I'm going to do stand-up in Chicago for 2 years, move to New York. Sort of got stuck in Chicago for 6 years.
Yeah.
So I always felt like I kind of wasted most of my 20s doing these shows in Chicago that ultimately I turned out were very beneficial. But at the time, I felt like I was just spinning my wheels. And
so you're like, that was 5 years and it should have just been 18 months.
Yeah, because I had a
Time
bunch.
goes by though in your 20s. You look up. Watch out, Kyle. Kyle's only 25.
Oh my God!
But yeah, all of a sudden you look up and 30's not that far away, and you do have this crisis of, wait a second.
Well,
I haven't done anything.
And then what happened was when I moved to New York, I started doing open mics because you have to start over.
Yeah.
So I was doing, I was about, I was like 27 and everyone else was 22. So I just kind of felt like everybody was like a little bit further ahead of me. And I felt like at my age, I should have accomplished more than I had.
Plus, as a minority comedian, you have your own kind of baggage that comes with that, where you're being measured. I don't know. The scale just seemed a little different.
Yes, although when I got to New York, that pressure went away.
Really? How come?
I think, right before I moved to New York, I think Aziz was like the biggest thing in New York, and he really sort of defined himself by not doing that sort of hack ethnic material.
Yeah.
So when I got there, I wasn't like the first brown guy who wanted to just do stand-up and not really talk about, stuff that could be cliched or whatever. So I think
that's
he
what I
helped
meant
me.
by the baggage by it, because this was the decade where that flipped. And I think the same thing with female comedians. I think in the 80s, when I was growing up, the 80s, 90s, if you saw somebody who wasn't a white dude doing stand-up, you were just kind of like, okay, let's hear it. You're female.
You're right.
Dude, talk about all your stuff. And
That's right.
it just was what people expected. And when people tried to veer away from that, it was almost like, wait, what?
Yeah, exactly. And I think most of 2000s was like that too.
I agree.
When I was first started doing stand-up, that's what people expected me to do. And right after 9/11, there were actually a lot of, I don't know if you remember this, but there was like a huge burst of, well, that's not a good term to use. But there was an explosion of brown comedians. That's horrible. But there really was. There were a bunch of like brown dudes from Middle East, Pakistan, places like that who sort of came up and were doing stand-up and talking about that stuff. And I was doing stand-up then, and I was like, well, I didn't want to talk about that stuff, so I didn't.
Well, now you have the last couple years here and immigration and all that stuff. Like, how are you still doing stand-up? Like, how much do you do?
I haven't been able to do stand-up.
Because you're doing acting like full-time, basically.
Pretty much full-time acting and writing. And part of the problem with me with stand-up was, and I'm trying to figure this out myself, is my stand-up style changed. And then I was very happy with where it was. And I feel like in the last couple of years, I can't quite figure out what the next thing would be. Like, I sort of went from doing one-liners and bits to doing stories. And then now I feel like with the stories, it feels a little unsatisfying. And I want to try and see what the next thing would be. But honestly, that's probably just a cop-out. I'm probably just...
Well, but you have to go out and you have to do 6 months and
it's
hone
a
your
lot.
material and hone different pieces, all that stuff.
It's hard. Like, for
it's a haul.
It is. Like, right now, acting, promoting this stuff, writing. At night, I don't want to go do stand-up. I'm creatively satisfied and I'm really tired.
You have a great beard.
I've got this great beard.
Just
I want to stay in and
looking in the
stroke
mirror,
it.
like just brushing it.
Have you had a beard ever?
I did. I just shaved it.
I bet you'd have a great beard.
It's just laziness. Mine gets too white now. It actually weirdly makes me look older.
No, but I was going to say your gray hair looks great.
Thank you.
Silver fox.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah, total
but
silver fox.
No, I like having the beard. I need like 20% more hair. Like yours is nice and full.
Oh, yours is
mine
not.
Mine is a little more,
Patchy.
Yeah, you can kind of see each individual hair if you look closely.
Right. Yeah, you don't want any of them to stand out. You want them all to hang out together.
Do you think, would you be messing around with stand-up if we didn't live in a world where people are just sneaking iPhone videos of people trying out stand-up material? Because I would be really intimidated by that.
I mean, I remember, that's really, really scary. It's also, we're just, as you become more well-known, each thing you talk about on stage comes under a bigger and bigger microscope.
You have more to lose.
You have more to lose, and also people can misunderstand what you're saying. Someone can quote something you said on stage, and it can be completely like misconstrued, mistake. I even think of like someone like Hannibal with the Bill Cosby bit that somebody taped.
Yeah.
I'm sure Hannibal is probably like, kind of sucks that that's the thing I'm known for.
Yeah.
If you look at Hannibal, he was like really, really, I felt like he kind of decided to retreat a little bit right after that, because that's all that anybody wanted to talk about.
I don't like where that's gone with stand-up comedy. Even somebody like Jesselnick, who was on this podcast actually last month, who pushes the envelope a little. And when you're getting damn close to the line, right? And the line's right there. And the funniest thing about some of the jokes you're doing is how close you got to the line without going over it. You're going to have to try jokes that accidentally go over the line. And they're like, oh, I didn't realize. Okay, the line's there. I'll scale that back. And I don't know how you practice that anymore.
Well, Anthony, I think, is such a specific example because he could do it better than anybody. He can get away with jokes that other people can't. And I've seen people online try and come after him.
Yeah.
And the way he handles it, he
just laughs at them.
He just laughs at them. He makes fun of them. He's like, yeah, it is really offensive.
Yeah, you're right. I'm the worst person.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's exactly right. And then he doubles down. And so he's kind of like, he's Teflon, you know? He's never going to apologize. Never has to apologize. But also it's his comic persona. This is a big thing that I've noticed that happens when people misconstrue stuff in TV and movies now. They think what a character is saying is what the creator is saying.
Yeah.
And that's not true. So, for instance, there'll be I've seen so there's YA novels, young adult novels.
Yeah.
They're like really, that community is very intense about policing itself.
I would say.
Do you know about this?
Well, I have a 14-year-old daughter. Yeah, I'm aware.
So what they'll do is they might quote something a bad guy says and be like, this is what's in this book. Do we want our kids to be exposed to this? When really, that's what the bad guy's saying. That's the point. Like, for instance, in my movie, The Big Sick, in the beginning, for the most of the movie, my character is wrong, right? Like, he's wrong about the way he's approaching his relationship, his family life, whatever. And people use that as an example of thinking how I think, which is completely not true. That's that character. That's that version of me.
Wait, so you're ruining this for Kyle.
I saw. What are you talking about?
He thought you were the same guy. He didn't realize you were.
So that's I think a big weird thing is that a lot of times the context is taken away, and also it's hard. It's a hard time for nuance, and I also think stuff that sort of checks a bunch of. And again, I am the most liberal guy in the world, like truly. But I feel like stuff that checks all the boxes of being woke is received better than stuff that is actually of a better quality, but may not go out of its way to make those points.
Because it's a pander culture in 2018.
I think
it's you can say certain things, and everybody's going to be. If it checks all those boxes, everybody's like, "Great,
yeah," and
you've checked all the boxes. Good job.
I've seen so many things that I'm like, this is not a well-made movie. It's the dialogue is bad, the story doesn't work, the jokes aren't funny. Its politics are right.
Yeah.
And so that's why it gets really lauded. I'm hoping it's an overcorrection and that things will sort of go back to how they were. But there are certain things now that you're kind of not allowed to dislike. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I also don't like that. The exchange of ideas used to be better. If you didn't agree with somebody else, there was more of a discourse about it. And like, let's say I had somebody who, the most conservative person ever on my podcast who was really over the line. My job, if I'm talking to them, is to talk about their ideas. And if I don't agree with them, pin holes in them and pick them apart and try to flip the ideas on the person, right? We don't do that anymore. Everybody's just in their own corners talking about stuff. And that's the part. It's just people who agree with each other talking to each other. I don't know if that's a good thing at all.
That's exactly right. There's two sides to what you just said.
As we agree with each other.
No, exactly. Well, I'm going to slightly disagree a little bit. The idea, what you said of having someone conservative come on and actually talk to them, and I understand that, but I also understand that someone who truly has really virulent ideas coming on your podcast, that it could be seen as legitimacy for that person.
True. Like
so
if you have Alex Jones on your podcast.
Exactly. I don't think that that's a good idea unless you do what you want to do, but I wouldn't have him on a podcast.
I would not either.
That he's worthy of talking to, and he's really not worthy of talking to. But I do think, and I think maybe it's probably the internet, right? We sound so old with our gray.
Well, the
hair and
internet
our beards.
the internet mobilizes like it's Clint Eastwood in The Unforgiven getting a posse, and they're all like, "Go get him!" And then they all gather together.
That's the thing, the initial promise of the internet. I remember when I was in college studying computer science in the late 90s, my professor, Dr. John Stone, who was this sort of philosopher, computer scientist, just a really smart, great guy, was so optimistic about the internet. And he had this quote up that was something like, the rise of the internet is the promise of the return of voice. Basically, he meant true democracy. Everybody's going to be able to contribute and everybody's ideas will be considered. And you'll be able to talk to people who disagree with you, people that you would not have had access to without the internet. That was the promise, but what's happened is the opposite, which is what you're saying, which is people who agree with each other talk to each other and just yell at the people who disagree with them. And there's no real discourse. I mean, I really can't really go on Twitter. Like, I use it to promote, but I used to be on Twitter and I would talk to people, but you really cannot do that anymore.
Yeah, I wonder as we head into this next decade, because I remember when I was growing up reading about somebody like Lenny Bruce.
Yeah.
And Lenny Bruce was operating, he was taking how uptight everybody was and flipping it against them. And George Carlin was doing it too. And all these comedians who eventually became these reverential figures, Richard Pryor.
Right.
And part of the reason they became so revered was because they were pushing the envelope with stuff like that. And I wonder now who's the generation that's going to push the envelope and be like, actually, we've swung too far the other way. We're too uptight, and I'm going to have fun with this. I'm going to make fun of you for being too uptight about this, or this. Who's going to do that?
It's interesting because I think what those guys had was obviously they were pushing the envelope, but they had a point of view about it. They had a philosophy about it. There was reasoning behind it. I feel like now, at least online, it's edgelord is the term, right? People just try and make the most shocking joke you can. Jokes about Jewish people, black people, whatever, that don't really have a point of view beyond shock.
Yeah,
but
shock and be mean.
Yeah, shock and be mean. And so it's not really the same as Lenny Bruce or George Carlin because those guys had something to say, Richard Pryor too.
But that's my question is, could we have the next generation of those guys?
Well, it's become...
And what would that even look like?
It's tough because people are dismissed and so quickly for certain things that then it can be hard to fight against that sort of tide that comes after you.
Yeah, there's no room for error at all anymore.
Yeah, and I really hope it's just overcorrecting and it'll fix itself at some point.
I feel like it's not.
I mean,
I hate to sound bleak, but I really worry about comedy because comedy was supposed to be the one thing we had that no matter what else was going on in life, we had this, and these guys were off limits. And this goes back to the fucking court jester a million years ago.
Yeah.
And comedy was always like a safe haven. And I wonder if that's just going to continue to lose its impact.
Yeah. I mean, so I haven't been doing stand-up really for the last couple of years. And part of it is I talk to my friends and I'm like, what are people talking about? And they're like, most people are talking about Trump. And the audience is sick of it. They don't want to hear it anymore.
He's orange.
Right.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, I've heard that one.
I mean, that's the thing. It's really hard because the stuff that's happening in the world is so big and specific
and depressing.
And depressing that if you don't talk about it, it feels like you're ignoring it. And if you talk about it, well, then you're talking about what everyone's talking about. And people go to the clubs to not want to hear that shit anymore. So it is a very difficult time for comedy. So that's what it's been hard for me to figure out what I would want to talk about on stage.
Well, I think you should just go have a meeting with Netflix. And they'd be like, hey, can we help you figure this out with $20 million?
I would love to do it.
Yeah.
That's a great
I'm happy
idea.
to go figure it out.
I'll call Ted Sarandos.
Netflix is throwing money out.
Netflix has really skewed the stand-up market by...
Skewed? They blew it up.
They blew it up by, I don't want to say overpay because... You know what? If you can get that money, get that money. A lot of them are my friends. That's awesome. But what's happened is that nobody else can afford it. Comedy Central can't afford to pay that. I mean, people are making millions of dollars. And I'm not talking about just Dave Chappelle and stuff. I mean, people who are very funny, but nowhere near Dave Chappelle are making great money.
Well, it's also globalized them.
Yes.
And now they can go to 50 countries.
Well, look at someone like Ali Wong, right? Who was a friend of mine and a very funny comedian, but she was just doing local shows. She had her Netflix show come out, a special come out, and it just like made her overnight someone people knew.
Yeah.
And then she did another special, and then that did even more. And then she did a movie that she wrote that she stars in, and that did even more. So it's interesting, the streaming.
Was that the one, You're My Maybe or whatever?
Always Be My Maybe, yeah.
Needs to say my 14-year-old daughter loved that movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
great.
Yeah, she likes all the Netflix rom-coms.
There's a lot of Netflix rom-coms.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They've really like decided to go all in on that.
It was a great idea.
Yeah.
Because they stopped making them.
They did,
and because nobody was, we had this 15, 20-year run of them, and then people stopped going to see them in the movie theater. But then every time they're on cable or in Blockbuster or wherever, everyone would eventually see them.
Right.
So I think Netflix just looked at it and goes, we'll just make them.
Yeah, they're
just come
cheap
right
to
here.
make. Yeah.
Did The Big Sick have a Netflix run?
No, it's Amazon. So they're like competitors. So it's on Amazon. So it's on Amazon now, which is great because they were great to us. But if it was on Netflix, that would be
Amazon forever?
Amazon forever until Amazon's around. Is Amazon going to die? I don't think so.
Not only is Amazon not going to die, I think they're just going to eventually, they'll figure out this content thing like they figured out groceries.
You have to.
Yeah, or music and all the other stuff they've done. And at some point, they're just going to be like, hey, let's just take content from everybody.
It is interesting because, I would say that like content, there's like a creative aspect to it. It doesn't really apply, but Netflix did it. Netflix figured it out. Netflix took sort of a Silicon Valley approach to entertainment, and it has worked for them. And for them, it's volume, right? They like make a lot of stuff, 5% hits, but that's still a huge. I had a meeting at Netflix a couple of years ago for something. And in that year, they were making 80 movies. 80 movies.
Yeah.
No studio ever in the history has made 80 movies a year.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And that you said volume is one thing. The other thing I think is intelligence. Like they study the behavior of who watches what, and they've mastered this algorithm now they're making all the stuff the algorithm has told them people like this.
Dude, they know how we think. There was a show, I believe it's David Fincher. It's an animated show called Love, Sex, and Robots or something like that. Have you seen it?
I haven't. I know what it is though.
So it's sort of like an old school heavy, remember Heavy Metal, that animated thing?
Yeah.
It's sort of like that. So there's like 12 episodes, but depending on who you are, the order of the episodes is different.
Oh, wow.
So there was a guy, he was like, Netflix clearly figured out I was gay. And so this is the order I have. And then my order is different from someone else's order. So there's like a bunch of different orders based on, they know everything about you,
It's funny. I have an account. So I have, it's labeled, right? It's like dad.
Uh-huh.
That's mine. My wife's name. My daughter's name, and then my son's name, which you've met, it says dickhead, which and he can't figure out how to change it. so dickheads it's got like, big mouth and all the stuff that he's not supposed to watch that he's watching. And then my daughter, you go on her main screen and it's like all rom-coms and Kate and Alexa and Kate, whatever that show is, all those types of shows. Mine is like all action and horror.
Uh-huh.
And
you like horror?
Oh, yeah. I've seen every horror movie ever.
That's my favorite genre.
Yeah. I'm out of horror movies.
Me too.
I actually want to get amnesia and then come back 3 years from now and have like 3 years of new horror movies to watch.
My wife and
I'm so tired of, there's nothing left.
Do you have Shudder? You know what that is?
Do I have Shudder?
Yeah.
We've done,
okay. All right.
They've sponsored the pod too.
Okay.
Yeah, we have. I'm on all of them. We're always looking.
What have
if
you
something's
seen?
wrong with the house, I'm in.
Well,
If you bought a new house and it's like, it seems great. Wait.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, just don't go up in the attic.
Yeah.
Some weird shit went on there. I'm like, I'm in. That's all I need.
I'll watch the whole damn thing. What have you seen anything recently that you liked?
No.
It's hard.
No.
For a genre we love.
We're in actually in a little bit of a slump right now, but I think it's going to come out of it with the new Conjuring movies. What, June 26th? We're taping this in June, but that one's coming. I think
the new Annabelle.
Yeah, that one will be good. And then apparently there's a couple later this summer.
Yeah,
but they know like there's
Child's
people.
Play. Child's Play is coming out soon.
Yeah, I'll see Child's Play.
Yeah,
I like the Halloween remake.
Yeah, me too.
I think the two Conjurings, I think I've been the happiest with.
I feel like those movies are weirdly underrated. And I know they're huge hits, but people don't see them as like sort of horror.
Like how they should be nominated for an Oscar potentially. We've talked about that because we talk about movies a lot here, and it's if you look at the 2013 movies, I think it's 2013.
Yeah,
it's like it's one of the 5 best movies of that year, but it would never get nominated.
Well, he's a great director, and a director of that caliber with actors of that caliber. Was it Conjuring 2? There's a scene where I think it's Patrick Wilson's in the foreground, and in the background you see that person like change into a demon, but they're out of focus and they have a conversation. Yeah. I was like, any movie that has that scene is worth spending money on. Like,
so what are your all-timers?
Oh man, it's tough. It changes, it's hard to get away from The Shining, of course. I would say The Descent is one of my
Descent. So I had not seen The Descent until last year.
What'd you think?
I just missed it, and a couple people at the Ringer were like, "Yeah, see The Descent."
Yeah,
I thought it was incredible.
Isn't it amazing?
It's definitely, it's a Hall of Famer. It's not Mount Rushmore for me, but it's a Hall of Famer.
So that's up there for me. I love the original Texas Chainsaw. That's
great ending.
Great ending.
Yeah.
And the first time he shows up with the door is awesome.
I like when he does like the whirl with the chainsaw at the end. It's not enough he's running out. He does like the 360. It's like Vince Carter.
Yeah. Still in the league. What else? What are your top ones?
So Mount Rushmore for me would probably be, probably older just because I've seen them the most, but Halloween, 100%.
Yeah.
Shining. It's weird. The Shining has actually gained steam for me, and I saw that movie in the theater when I was 10, and I was freaked the fuck out and probably saw it way too early.
Right.
I was 10 or 11.
Well, there's a sequel to that coming out too.
The Shining?
Yeah.
That's sacred ground.
I know, it feels weird. They recreated scenes from it. They reshot part of it. Anyway.
Halloween, Shining. I would probably say the first Conjuring.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth one just would depend on what mood I was in. Because I love the original Amityville Horror.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
Wow.
I love the dad just starting to fucking slowly lose it. He's staring in the fire. I love all that stuff. I think the first Scream is actually like really great.
It's so good. The first
and
Scream
it revived
is
the whole genre and the whole thing. First Saw was really good.
Yeah.
Became whatever it is. But yeah, I actually made a list. You could come up with a couple more. I'll read you a couple more on my list.
Okay. Have you seen so here, this is a fucked up one. It's not on my Mount Rushmore, but it's like a really, really messed up one.
I guarantee I've seen it.
Martyrs? Did you see Martyrs?
Martyrs? What's that?
It's a French movie.
Once we leave America,
you don't get into
spottier. No, I'm spottier. I've seen a lot.
Martyrs is probably the most fucked up movie I've ever seen. And it's a French horror movie.
Home invasion?
No. So the movie starts where most movies end. So it's basically this girl gets kidnapped. She's like 13, is tortured forever. And the movie starts with her escaping.
Oh.
So then the whole time, the structure of it's so weird that you kind of never know what's coming. And it's basically she's 13 and then she kind of grows up and goes back to that house where she was taken. And the stuff that happens, it's just
Martyrs.
But yeah, but I can't recommend it because it really is. It's a fucking mess. It's really, really well made. It's not just like gore piled on gore. It's like a well-made film. Like it's sort of designed to really unsettle you all the way through.
I made a list.
Ahead. Yeah.
Halloween 1.
Yeah.
Silence of the Lambs 2.
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs.
I can't believe I forgot that one.
Yeah, I know, me neither.
That's on my top 5.
Sorry to Hannibal.
For sure.
The Shining 3, Scream 4, 7, 5, Get Out 6, Exorcist 7, Drag Me to Hell 8.
Great. Drag Me to Hell is good.
I fucking love Drag Me to
Hell. What movie I just thought of recently that I loved was Demon Knight. Do you remember? Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome. Not, top 10 or top 20, but really, really awesome.
Conjuring 9, Amityville Horror 10. That's my top 10.
That's a good list.
Most underrated, Silent Rage.
Silent Rage?
Silent Rage with Chuck Norris.
That's a horror movie?
Yeah, 1982. It was a Halloween ripoff. He's a sheriff in Texas. The movie starts, this guy, he just has like a mental breakdown and starts killing everyone in his family with an axe. Chuck Norris kills him. So they take the body to the hospital, and the two scientists are like, hey, we should try that potion we did. to revive people.
That's never a good idea with a killer.
Yeah,
Don't do it with a killer.
Let's try it with this guy. No, his family won't care.
That's the worst guy to try it with.
Yeah, so they put the medicine in, and he wakes up and becomes the serial killer again, but now he can't die.
He's like
now he
superhuman.
can't die.
Does he look human or is he all
He's
fucked
human.
up?
He's fine.
Yeah.
But he's like, people are killing him. He's just getting up.
Yeah.
So then Chuck Norris finally has to take him down again.
Okay.
It's fucking great. It's so good. I can't believe they haven't remade it. It's my number one. I can't believe they haven't remade
like a
this
martial
movie.
arts horror movie.
The guy won't die. I did a podcast with Ron Silver in like 2000. Not a podcast, an interview with Ron Silver. They assigned me to write about the movie Ali. Remember?
Of course.
So he was the trainer, and he had like 10 minutes with each person.
Right.
So I'm doing this junket, and then Ron Silver's there, and I'm like, I'm a huge Silent Rage fan. He's like, the guy who wouldn't die. Like, he got immediately excited. It was like nobody had mentioned it to him in 20 years. So.
I mean, so how does it end then?
I'm not going to tell you. You got to watch it.
Okay.
It's on Amazon, your favorite place. But yeah, I'm in for any home invasion movie, especially like if it's like a resort or not resort. What's the word? The remote location.
Like us.
Yeah, like a cabin.
Yeah.
I like cabins where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's so peaceful out here. I'm just going to write a couple chapters of my book. And then it's like a knock on the door.
Yeah. If you survive this, your book's going to be way more interesting.
And I like a house where something's in the attic and they find it and it's like, what's this?
Uh-huh. What's that one? What's the Ethan Hawke? Is there an Ethan
Hawke one? Yeah. They
That's
find the thing in the desert.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I
They
like
find
that
like what is it? Like a little statue skeleton thing?
Yeah, what is
And the
it?
kid's like, I'm not going to tell my parents. I'm just going to bring this with me
Never
to
a
our
good
house.
idea. Tell
Never
your
going
parents.
to. Always
Tell
tell
your
your
parents. kid.
Always tell your parents.
You find something creepy, tell
Oh,
your
It
parents.
Follows was really good. That was
It
a recent
Follows
one.
is great.
That was a classic.
I really like the new It, too.
Oh yeah.
It's super fun. Really funny.
It too.
And
So haters in it too. They're like all
know.
grown up.
I know. Very jealous.
Let's talk about Luminary, the new podcast subscription service with some of the best content around. I'm excited because you can listen to the rewatchables $19.99 there. We are in a hiatus right now. We did 10. Got some more coming in the fall. But right now, we have our new podcast, Break Stuff, the story of Woodstock 1999. It's a podcast you will not want to miss if you like music, if you like nostalgia, if you like finding out how 19 different things can go wrong with a music festival. Check it out. Luminary gives you access to a bunch of other original shows from innovative, dynamic creators you can't find anywhere else, like Hannibal Buress's Handsome Rambler or Wisdom from the Top with Guy Raz. The Luminary app, free to download. And in addition to the can't miss originals, you can use it to listen to thousands of podcasts, including this one. Yeah, right here, the BS podcast. Check out Woodstock 99 and so much more only on Luminary. Get your first 2 months of access to Luminary's premium content for free when you sign up at luminary.link/Simmons. After that, it's only $7.99 per month. Luminary.link/Simmons. 2 months, free access. Luminary.link/Simmons. Cancel anytime. Terms do apply. I wanted to ask you about The Big Sick.
Yeah.
Which I know you've talked about ad nauseum, but now it's 2 years. It was 2
No,
years
I'm ready
ago.
to talk about it.
No, just like you threw yourself in this movie. You wrote it with your wife.
Yeah.
And it was super personal. It was the kind of movie when it gets made, it's cool. You do your round of interviews, like it makes like $5 million and then like has a life on video or Netflix or whatever. And it's like, oh, that was adorable. That movie actually succeeded.
Yeah.
It made money.
Yeah.
It was there a point during that whole run where you're like, holy shit, people are seeing this.
No, even still. I mean, we got nominated for a fucking Oscar for,
I know.
for writing it. No, I don't. I can't. I mean, my problem is I don't really ever enjoy any success. It's always like the next thing. I remember when I first did Letterman, as soon as I got done, I was like, all right, how do I get to do this again? So there was no like enjoyment of it. You know, it's there's never really a time to be like, okay, now it's so it was a platform release, so it opened in 5 theaters, then like 20. So we were trying to get it up as much as we could, and we got it over 1,000 eventually, which was amazing, or maybe over 2,000. Like we went pretty wide, but those 5 weeks, you're like going town to town pushing the movie, right?
You're almost like, you're like a politician, like stumping and trying to get like recognition.
I'm stumping, trying to get people to, you know, to more theaters to open it. So that whole time there's like a goal, right? You're not like, I've done it. And then when it finally starts like stop making money, you're like, oh, I guess the run is done. I was hoping for a little more, but this is fine. And then you start doing what people don't know is that, when you are campaigning for an Oscar, it's so much work. It's not a pure process in the sense that this is a great movie, now it gets nominated. Like you said, The Conjuring, right? They probably didn't do a campaign. Get Out did a campaign,
right?
And Get Out got nominated a ton, and it deserved it. Get Out was, an awesome movie. It's on your list. Yeah, one of the all-timers for sure. And so then you're sort of pushing for that. So it's all, and then you get nominated, and you're like, and I did enjoy the day we got nominated. That was a good day. Good. And then you're like, all right, now to keep going and see if we can win, even though we knew we weren't going to win. And Jordan Peele won, and he deserved to win. It was awesome, but there's never really a moment to sit back and enjoy it. Now I can look back and be like, it changed my life. It changed my career. It was great.
We're wired the same way. I never enjoy anything.
I would have guessed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you do, it's actually probably dangerous.
What do you mean? Like you become
No, if you're
cocky?
like, all right, that was cool. We did it.
No.
It's not a good.
Absolutely not. When you said that, like it felt so alien to me. Never. So like this movie,
Amazon bought it, right?
Amazon bought it and distributed it. Yeah.
I mean, that's like one of the better streaming. It was like one of the first streaming success stories, I feel like. Now it's a little more common.
Yeah, I think the year before us was Manchester by the Sea, and that did really well for them. And then we did really well. And then it's getting harder and harder to get people to go to the theater to see movies. They'll go for Avengers. They'll go for,
You're dealing with this now, this Bautista thing. We're having this terrible summer, and you have a movie coming out. And like these movies are bombing left and right.
Everything's bombing. I was in a movie that bombed last weekend.
Oh, the Men in Black?
Yeah.
I thought you were just a voice. Were you actually in it?
No, I'm a voice. I'm an alien. But I'm in a bunch of the movie. And people just didn't go see it.
It's tough to redo that one. I mean, by the time people hear this, it'll be some distance from it. But it's tough to redo a franchise like that and not have Will Smith in it.
Obviously. It's just I can't disagree with you. No. I think they're really, yeah. With someone like, when you think
it's like we're rebooting the 2012 Heat, but we don't have LeBron.
Right, exactly.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, that's such an iconic role for him.
Yeah, it's tough to separate it.
I think that might be when he went, when he became full movie star, was Men in Black. Was that his first, huge, crazy movie star performance? I don't know.
His whole decade. Yeah, I remember,
Bad Boys.
Is when I was like, holy, Bad Boys is coming. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Him and Martin Lawrence.
He's so good. I want him to go back to make, another just... Aladdin, I thought was great.
People seem to like it.
He was great in Aladdin. Yeah,
the movie you did with Bautista, though.
Yes.
I still feel like people will go see a good action movie.
I hope so. It's a movie called Stuber. Comes out July 12th. And I really, really love this movie. I really, really do. And, sometimes you do stuff that doesn't turn out well. Certainly dealt with that a whole bunch. But this one is fucking great. I love this movie. And Bautista's great in it. It's funny.
So best case scenario, it does well. The other scenario is it doesn't do that well, but then people will eventually find it.
I hope so. I want to say the satisfaction is in making a good movie. Everything else you can't control.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is, if this movie doesn't do well, it does hurt my career. It hurts my opportunities. It hurts what I can do next. If it does well, it's fucking great. Then I can go buy an island. So we're really...
I think you get the Dos Equis thing either way, though. No matter how it plays out.
I want to go beyond Dos Equis. No offense to the Dos Equis guy. That's not the career high point I'm aiming for.
What kind of opportunities did you have after The Big Sick?
A lot. So basically, what happened?
Were you careful?
Yes. Stuber was what I picked, and I didn't do anything for a long time because what happens is when there's a new person who's seen as a new comedy person, right? New face in comedy. It happened to Tiffany around the same time. All these studios will dust off scripts that they've been sitting on for decades, and they'll send them to you.
Yeah.
And you'll see at one point, Jim Carrey was going to be this. At one point, Will Ferrell was going to be, So you get all these scripts that are, to be honest, not good enough to get made. And it's seductive, You're you have to work so hard to get even small parts in movies. And now people want me to be the lead of these like big studio movies. But I didn't like any of them.
Yeah.
And I was so like nervous after The Big Sick. Like, where do you go? Like a movie that my wife and I wrote that's so personal to us, did so well. Where do you go after that? So I had a little bit of paralysis for a little while, and I kind of didn't pick anything for a year. And then I read Stuber, and I really liked it. And I love Dave Bautista. And the director was great. He did a movie called Goon, which I'm sure you know.
By the way, I never offered you water.
I've got water.
Oh, you have?
Sorry. And so
Goon was good. I like Goon.
Goon's really
What's
good.
the director's name?
Michael Dowse.
Yeah, that was good.
And so I picked Stuber because I was like, okay, that's so different from The Big Sick that it cannot be compared to it, you know? So I'll just do this. And it had some stuff in it that I was like, if we can push this aspect of it, then it will really become something that'll be different from anything. So it's a great action comedy, but it has some stuff in it that you wouldn't really expect in an action comedy like this.
I liked him in
Blade Runner.
no, Heist. Is that what it's called?
I don't know what that
De
is.
Niro?
I don't.
He's in that.
What's Heist?
It was they do a heist and he's one
Do
of the
they?
bad guys in it. Yeah, it's
They do a
literally,
heist, do
you're
a
not
heist?
gonna believe this, but there's a heist. And it's like a double cross heist movie, and he's one of the guys in it. And that was the first time I'd seen him in a movie. I was like, I know this guy. That guy looks like Batista. And then you hop on your phone, you do IMDb it as you're
Are
watching.
you a
it.
wrestling guy? Have you been?
Oh
for a
yeah,
long
big
time?
wrestling guy. Yeah.
Really?
I was like, oh my god, that is Batista.
He's great in this movie, man. He's so good, and he's just so soulful. I don't know how else to describe it. Have you met him ever?
I've never met him, but I became fascinated by him like a year ago. Somebody wrote a big feature about him. I don't know
Where?
if you read it. It was
I'm sure I did.
It was like it was newspaper magazine. It was an online something, but it was just a big feature about him trying to cross over into acting. And he was like way more thoughtful than I expected. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
'Cause I just knew him as like the meathead wrestling star guy.
I mean, he looks so specific. It's going to be hard for him to get the types of roles that I think he truly deserves, you know? Like,
Well, I'm always for more action stars. I love action movies.
dude, he's so, I mean, he looks like $1 million. He's huge, and he's just so good in this movie. I'm so happy to just be. I said, like, I was like, even if this movie tanks, you know, the reviews are bad, it'll be worth it just to have met Bautista.
Well, you'll have me and Ben Simmons because Ben Simmons loves you now.
Yeah,
He was so mad that I didn't tell him when he was sitting next to you that you're a famous person.
Oh,
And I was like, I didn't realize.
but what would he know me from? Nothing, right? He's not watched The Big Sick or anything.
No, he wouldn't know you. I was
No.
going to say, did he see Silicon Valley? But I don't think he's watched that. If you did a voice on Big Mouth, he would have been really super impressed.
I love that.
Work
show.
on that one.
I
You could
should.
be like a new hormone
I'm
monster.
friends with Kroll. Why would he not put me on?
Tell him you want to just be hormone something for one
Just
episode.
put me in for one episode.
My son, they did like the Birds and the Bees talk at his school at the end of 5th grade. It was like the first one. And I'm like, I was like, do you want to talk about that? Do you want to talk about this before you have it? He's like, Dad, I know everything. I've seen every episode of Big Mouth. But he was dead serious.
Well,
That's how
yeah.
he found out about puberty from Nick Kroll.
Have you seen
Is that
that?
a good thing?
No.
Is it good that Nick Kroll is shaping the puberty of an
I will
entire
say
generation?
It is better that it's through a TV show and not like Nick Kroll sitting your son down to be like, you didn't like
Rolling his
hire-
own cigarettes.
Yeah, exactly. He was rolling his own cigarettes for a while.
Yeah, he'll do it every once in a while.
Have you seen Big Mouth?
I have. We didn't know that he was watching it until he had watched a season and a half.
I mean, it's a filthy show.
It's really filthy.
Mm-hmm.
He was watching South Park before we realized he was watching it, and we didn't stop that in time either. So
But he seems very smart and like a normal, good kid.
my thing is, I want my kids to have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And if they have to watch this stuff 3 years before they would have watched it,
It's
that's
fine.
probably okay.
I mean, the shit I watched when I was a kid.
That's how I felt too.
I watched everything. I mean, other than like porn, which I didn't get to watch until I was probably. I mean, even that was too early.
There was just scrambled porn back then.
Yeah, you just flip channels back
You
and forth.
see-
You see like a green
See, like
nipple.
a nipple for 3 seconds.
Yeah, like a square nipple. You're like pretty sure that's a nipple.
Yeah.
The first boobs I saw was in Total Recall. Remember the girl with 3 boobs?
the 3 boob lady.
That was the first boobs I ever saw.
I've actually been in conversations with people where we argued about whether it was okay to be attracted to her. And my angle was yes.
Yes.
She was attractive.
I mean, of course.
Yeah, the 3-boob lady was iconic.
Yeah, no, I
Iconic
remember.
80s babe.
Yeah, I remember being so confused, being like, oh my God, couple questions. Some things need clarifying.
It was crazy on Mars back then. A lot of radiation. So you have this movie.
Oh,
Silk-
baby, you make me wish I had 3 hands. That's what he says.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about
That's
that.
what he says.
So you
Yeah.
have this movie. What else do you have?
So Stuber. Then I got we start Silicon Valley the last season next week. We start shooting. And that was-
Emotional?
yeah, of course. Really, it is emotional. It's very special job and situation. Never gonna have anything like that ever again. It was great. It's great to be on a show that you would actually watch even if you weren't on it.
Well, also the every rich guy you ever meet for the rest of your life will.
Oh my God.
I mean, all of them watch that show.
Yeah.
They're watching it like the same way doctors would watch ER and criticize the.
Right.
Oh, you'd never do a surgery that way.
Exactly. A lot of them are terrible people. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
We've met a lot of these big tech
Who
people.
could have guessed?
And they, well, here's the thing. Right now, everyone's upset at Silicon Valley tech industry.
Yeah.
And they're douchebags. I'm like, we've known for 6 years.
Yeah.
When we first did the pilot and we went to Silicon Valley to meet these people, we were like, oh, these people fucking suck. And now you're seeing how much they suck. Like all the Facebook stuff and all that.
Well, the thing is, if you watch Silicon Valley, it's not like the characters who had a ton of money were these awesome people.
No.
I mean, pretty much from the get-go,
right.
Mike Judge was trying to make a point.
Yeah.
Like, these are not great people.
No, they're assholes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like somehow in some ways very smart. Like Jack Dorsey, the Twitter guy who says he eats like 1 meal a day and on weekends doesn't eat at all.
Yeah.
I don't buy that. How could you live like that?
I had him on a pod like 4 months ago. I didn't ask him about that, and I should have.
What was he like?
It was actually a really good pod, right?
Yeah, he was really skinny though. I might buy it.
He's really skinny. I gotta say he is skinny. But we really went. It was weird talking to him about the whole abuse thing, and it's weird when somebody.
Oh, you asked him about that stuff.
Oh, we talked about it a lot because I was like, "How have you not fixed this yet?" And he's doing the thing. Yeah, I mean, he was really nice, but he was doing the whole thing like, "Yeah, it's something we got to fix." And I'm like, you're the guy. And,
why are you here? Go fix it.
I'm literally asking him, like,
eat a fucking hamburger and fix this.
I'm like, you're the guy who can fix this. It's your thing.
Yeah. I mean,
it was just so weird.
I really think his brain would work better if he was eating on the weekends.
Have some chips.
Yeah, man. Have you had a French fry recently? They're so good.
I've never. It was like talking to the head of a fire department as a building's burning.
He's like,
and be like, yeah, that building's burning. He's like, yeah, we got to do something.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of standing there looking at the burning building. And it was bizarre.
Well, the main thing that I've noticed, at least in my opinion, is that a lot of these tech people see their technology as amoral. They don't think of it as whether it can be used for good or evil. They're just making technology, and however people use it is how they use it, and it has nothing to do.
They're sending it out into the world.
Right. I remember I did a conference a couple years ago where I was supposed to judge like these apps that people had made. You know, it was a big corporation, and their employees on the side would make these apps, and they would have a big like contest in front of like 6,000 people. And I was one of the judges, and they show like the 10 apps and what they can do. And one of them was, this guy was like, look at this. It's a picture of Obama or whatever. And I have 20 minutes of dialogue of him. So now give me a sentence. And you give him a sentence. And then it's a video of Obama saying these things. And people are clapping. I'm like, this is awful.
Yeah.
This is very, very scary. How can you not think of the obvious ethical implications of this? And now
this is going to be next decade. It's going to be the deep fake era where you can basically make a porn video with any actress and it'll look like it's the actress. You can fake anybody's speech.
Yeah,
you can do anything.
I remember when the first deep fake thing was going around, people were like, it's great. It's like you can watch Jennifer Lawrence have sex. I'm like, it's going to be horrible.
Can somebody ask Jennifer Lawrence if this is great?
Yeah, how does she feel?
I promise she doesn't think this is great. Yeah, it's impersonation and all that shit is going to be one of the dominant. I worry about the DNA. Like I have all these relatives who are like, I got my DNA test. I found out I'm 60% Irish and 40. And it's all right, but now they have your DNA.
Right.
Everything gets leaked left and right, and all of our information goes everywhere. It's like, why do I want my DNA out there with some random fucking site?
Everything goes everywhere, and I honestly don't know how we go back. Like, I think
we're screwed.
Privacy is such an important part of a society, and if you look at societies where privacy has been like compromised at its core. I know people are like, don't use the Nazi example, but that's how the Nazi society was like. You know, people were reporting on their friends, like there was no privacy. It's the same with like later. Did you see this movie, The Lives of Others?
Yeah.
Oh God, I love that movie. Sidetrack.
Well, my question is, are we just heading toward a world where their privacy is like kind of irrelevant? You know, like people are so deconditioned now to celebrity nudity. Like when Pamela Anderson made the sex tape in 1996, I felt like that was like one of the 5 biggest moments of that year. That's like, she's in a sex tape? What?
Yeah.
Now it's like, anybody could be in a sex tape. It wouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, fucking Screech was in a sex tape.
Screech was. The Obamas could be in a fucking sex tape, and it would be like a 2-day story, and it would go away.
I mean, maybe the problem is that each thing that happens gets disseminated so much that then becomes the floor.
Yeah.
So then the next time that happens, it's nothing. So now the next thing has to be like escalated a little bit, and then that becomes normal.
It's like wrestling. In wrestling, the moves became crazier and crazier. And all of a sudden, you have dudes jumping off 40-foot ladders and practically breaking their neck.
Which is what we saw at WrestleMania.
Because at some point, you desensitize the audience where they already saw that. You got to go one crazy step higher.
Life is like a John Wick movie or a Fast and the Furious movie.
Seriously.
We're just like, now they're dragging a safe around.
John Wick, I love John Wick 3. He's riding a fucking horse through Manhattan. Like, what?
And that's like 40% of the way into the movie. Where do you go from there?
It was great. Yeah,
it was great.
I don't know where things are going. How many seasons should Silicon Valley have been?
I think 6 is the right
number. You think it's the right number?
I think so. I mean, part of it is that our deals were for 6 seasons.
Right.
So if we did a 7th one, I mean, we would make great money.
Oh.
So I think.
But you already have the Netflix special they're going to give you.
Right. I got
the 2-episode comedy special.
Ted, and
Ted's already, he has his algorithm told him that that we were talking about
We were talking about it. Well, I mean, the algorithm stuff is crazy because have you read these articles that came out recently about how YouTube algorithms have sort of.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy because that's really so much more like Terminator or something than, we made an AI and now the AI is making us.
I've noticed because my son, he has the YouTube where it skips the commercials.
Oh, so it's YouTube.
You pay like $6.99 a month.
Yeah.
So I use his YouTube when I go on YouTube, so I don't have to watch the commercials. And I go on there and it's suggesting like basically wrestling videos and pranks.
Great. If he can stay in that zone,
but
fine.
But it's also like if he was doing other stuff, I would know pretty much immediately because then the algorithm would be like, your son's looking at like girls on trampolines or whatever.
Right.
I would know immediately.
I would say even that is in the okay realm.
True.
Once he goes to like climate denial, whatever, that stuff.
Yeah.
Then
Why is my son on the Alex Jones Sandy Hook videos? What's happening?
He's commented on every InfoWars video in the last 3 years.
We've got to stop this guy. It is creepy. So with Silicon Valley, did you feel like the TJ Miller stuff overshadowed the middle part of the run at all? Because it became like the dominant story with the show for like a year.
Did it?
I felt like it.
I was working so hard to avoid it, to ignore it, because it was such a part of our lives for so long that I hope not. I hope the show is remembered beyond that, but I do know.
I think it will absolutely be remembered beyond that. It just like, it did seem like it derailed the press for it for about a year.
I mean, he did 3 interviews in a row that were like him ripping on the show and on Alec Berg. And I remember when Alec Berg is our showrunner, and he still has been from the beginning.
Now he's with Bill Hader too on
Barry. He does
Barry,
which is a great show. Daddy's got a new family.
Turns out he's good at stuff, Alec Berg.
He's a fucking genius, man. And I remember TJ like ripping on him, and as an example being like, I mean, he comes from the Seinfeld world, so what does he know? You mean one of the greatest sitcoms of all time?
The most iconic sitcom we've ever made?
You're using that to diss him? I mean...
And he did Curb.
And he did Curb. Yeah. Alec is... I haven't met every comedy showrunner in Hollywood, but I can't imagine one better than him.
Right. You're imagining he's in the upper echelon.
He's on Mount Rushmore, and I bet other comedy showrunners who have met more people will agree. The guy doesn't miss.
Do you feel like a show like that is almost like a basketball team? Is the show better when everybody is getting along and on the same page, or does it not matter? Because I look at like how Kyrie Irving has affected the Celtics this past year.
Yeah.
My beloved team that is now completely fallen apart.
Is he still there?
Well, he's going to leave.
By
the time people hear this, they'll be like, oh, this is so cute.
He's going to leave right now.
I think he's leaving at the end of June, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He's going to Brooklyn.
I think it goes both ways. I think that there has to be some sort of thing. Either there has to be like deep love, or there has to be maybe deep hate. Because a lot of the great stuff you hear like, oh, they hated each other. So you can sort of feel that on screen. I think the worst thing is apathy. I've certainly worked on stuff where I'm like, nobody cares about this.
True.
Nobody's upset, but nobody's like having a great time either. People are just kind of doing it. I think that's the stuff that has nothing. I would much rather be in an environment that's like loving and everybody. Like our show now.
Yeah.
Last season and this season, it's gross how much. Like we hang out all the time still.
It's funny. I remember I wrote a column about A-Rod 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And the thesis was like he was at his all-time most disliked. And he was the steroids thing and he was coming back.
Wait, he had a steroids thing?
Yeah, a couple times.
Okay. I'm not a big baseball
he had
guy.
a couple ones. But my whole thesis was sometimes it's good to have the one guy at work that it drives everybody crazy because it brings everybody else together.
Yeah.
It's like this common enemy they have. So
that's therapy strategy. So my wife was a therapist, and when she would do group therapy, she would make herself the bad guy so that the group could bond together against her.
Yeah.
And that's what happens is like if there's one who's like the bad apple, once that bad apple leaves, then you got to be a little careful that you don't become the bad apple, because the dynamic is that, groups work better if there's somebody to work against.
Steve Kerr, the Warriors coach.
Yeah. I do know basketball.
Yeah, he's been on this pod a bunch of times.
He
but
seems like
not
a
as much.
great guy.
He's the best.
Yeah.
But he always had the two knucklehead theory where you can have one knucklehead on your team, but if you have two, they might hang out. And if they're hanging out, then anything can happen, and then they might pull the third guy in who doesn't talk well, but
that's right.
Or who doesn't talk that much, but he's with those two guys, and now you have three of them.
Right. That's what Ray Romano, who's in Big Sick, had twins, and he's like, that's the problem with twins. It's like if there's one kid who's crazy, that's fine, but once there's two, that's an exponential.
That's like
increase.
7 crazy kids.
And I've been like, we have another show coming out for Apple. Apple's starting a streaming service.
Yeah.
It's called Little America.
I've heard of Apple.
Yeah, they your phones and all that stuff.
Yeah. I think they make the phone app.
But they're getting into the game now.
Yeah, they're getting in the game.
And so we have a show there called Little America.
Who else is involved in Little America?
Me, Emily, Alan Yang, who
That's how I knew about that. Yeah.
Do you know him?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and Lee Eisenberg is another.
I'm on a basketball text thread with him.
Oh, really?
I'm actually on 2 different text threads with him, because one is I'm like he's friends with Chang, my buddy Chang.
Right. Chang's great.
And all those guys. So we have like an Asian sports thread that I think I'm the only non-Asian on.
Cool, man.
But like when for Linsanity in the finals, like we were like, Linsanity, it was the first. Jeremy Lin won an NBA ring. It kind of felt like it should have been a bigger deal.
Yeah.
So it was like a running thing the whole time.
I did see some pictures going around of him holding the
it was
thing.
good. It was a big moment.
Yeah.
Linsanity finally.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe he wasn't playing, but
how did he have that run?
What do you mean?
When he was
with the
like,
Knicks?
Yeah.
It'll never be explained.
How did that happen?
He just got really hot for 3 weeks at the perfect time for the perfect team. And it all crested with this Lakers game on Friday night against Kobe Bryant on ESPN. And it just felt like the biggest deal ever. And then it was just...
And he did what? He like crushed that game?
He cried. He had like 40 against Kobe.
I remember when it was happening, people being like, we don't know what's going on. It's not going to last. People weren't like, this guy's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, he is great.
When's the other shoe
Yeah, people
drop?
kept waiting.
What's Little America about?
So Little America is an anthology show that's based on real life stories of immigrants. So we collected a bunch of real life stories of immigrants to America, and we made like half-hour episodes on each one. And they're not really, it's not a political show. So like, for instance, the first episode that me and Emily and Lee Eisenberg wrote together it's a true story about this Irani immigrant who lives in Yonkers. Doesn't have much money, in a tiny apartment. He wants because he had a mansion in Iran. So he's looking for houses, too expensive. Then he finds a piece of land for like $60,000. And he's like, wow, that's so cheap. I'm going to buy it. The problem is there's a massive rock on it, like a huge rock. And so he buys it, and the episode is just about him trying to figure out how to get this fucking rock off the property. And he goes and he looks up like the history of it, because people in the past have tried to get rid of this rock, trying to see what they know, what they've tried. It's almost like a horror movie in the sense that like every ghost movie is kind of like a mystery. You know, you got to figure out where the ghost is from. You go look at the archives, all that shit. So that's the first episode.
So it's all different immigrant stories, and it's like a mosaic of all the stories.
Right. It's 8 episodes.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's really.
Don't lose focus on the horror movie that you clearly need to make if you love horror movies this much.
Emily and I have actually talked about it, and we have a couple premises, but I don't know yet.
Oh, Netflix is on the phone again. They have
horror
God. Movie and a comedy special. This is great.
This is the best part I've ever done.
Oh my God, you made $50 million. I can't believe this.
I just still don't know how to do a horror movie. Like, you know, like most movies, I understand the structure. I understand what makes them good or bad. Not to say that I can do it, but I at least understand. With horror, I feel there's like a little bit of magic that I don't understand, like something like
secret sauce.
Yeah, like Get Out has like a secret sauce.
You should just watch like 50 in a row over the course of 3 weeks and just have it infect your brain and then figure out a plot.
I feel like
you can do it. You can do this. We need more good horror movies.
We really do, because
this should be a mission for you.
Horror is the only thing that when I watch, I'm not like evaluating and trying to deconstruct and break down. Other stuff, I'm always like trying to see like, okay, so they did that. Oh, okay, so now this is going to happen. There it is. Okay, now this happened. I still enjoy it, but horror I don't. But Little America, I was saying this. So I found in my experience, to go to what Steve Kerr said, if you're editing something, there's writing, directing, and acting, right?
Yeah.
If all those 3 things are great, amazing. If one of those 3 things is bad, I think you can still save it. But if 2 of those 3 things are bad, then it becomes almost impossible to fix it.
So it's like basketball: shooting, rebounding, defense.
Is that you have to have 2 of the 3
to at least be half decent?
Yeah. So that's my theory, at least. Of those 3 things, you can get away with 2.
That's a good theory.
Yeah, because if there's an actor is not good, the director is good. The director will know how to get the performance out of the actor. If the script isn't good, the cast is good, and the director is good, then there'll be a pace to it, and the actors will sell moments that you didn't think were there. If the script and the actors are good, even if the director is bad and just pointing at the camera, you'll get something.
You've never directed, right?
No, I want to. I'd love to do it.
Oh, well, we'll talk to Ted.
Yeah. Oh my God, another text.
This was fun. Good luck with the movie. I can't wait to take my son to see it.
By
the way, I forgot to mention to you, the wrestling fans were really mad at you at the Wrestlemania.
Because I was holding up the big
You kept holding up the sign. The guy like 2 rows behind me, I actually thought.
Oh, was he really upset?
Yeah, I was.
I didn't know.
Because you didn't know, because you didn't know like some of the rules of.
Oh, is that against the rules?
Yeah,
I feel
you're
bad
supposed
now.
to bring the sign up and down.
Oh.
But I had your back if anything was going to happen.
Well,
I didn't even know
you.
it was you, but I was like, I got this guy.
I remember one guy angrily being like, "What are you holding up?" And then I turned it around and he was like, "Oh, okay." Like
you were so into it and so selling what your role was that it was. I think people like appreciated it.
I honestly wasn't.
It could have gone badly though.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I completely am on their side. I should have been more thoughtful about it.
No. The wrestling fans are fucking snobs. It wasn't your fault.
I didn't know that.
It wasn't your fault. You have to obey the rules of whatever. And
I understand.
You didn't know, but they're not generous with that.
No, I'm sure you're right.
Because it wasn't like you were deliberately being like, fuck these people behind me.
I honestly, when we were shooting Stuber, July 12th, Dave would talk about the career. He was like, I want to go back and do Wrestlemania. And then when he texted me months after the movie, and he was like, I'm going to go get to do my retirement match, and I would love it if you would be there. And it meant so much.
So you guys are buddies now.
Yeah. I talk to him all the time.
Like, I feel like this is leading to a tag team match where he does most of the work, but then you come in at the end and just pin the guy.
That's exactly what would happen. That's exactly the story.
They do that in wrestling all the time. It's the 2 of you. He gets hurt like 10 minutes into the match. You have to go in.
Yeah.
You're about to get beaten up, but then he rallies and comes back and saves
Yeah.
you and then beats everybody up and then you do the pin.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it'll be fine. You won't get hurt. This was great, though. Good luck with the movie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks
Thank you.
for having me.
Thanks to ZipRecruiter. Don't forget to go to ZipRecruiter.com/BS. Thanks to WGU, an online university changing lives by changing higher education, a competency learning model that was designed specifically to fit in the lives of busy adults, about half the cost of other online universities, bachelor's and master's degrees in business, IT, teaching, and nursing. Graduates have gone on to work for leading companies like Microsoft and Amazon. Get your $65 application fee waived at wgu.edu/BS. We are going to be back next week. If you miss me, I think we're only doing 2 podcasts next week. If you miss me, you can listen to the Rewatchables that we did on When Harry Met Sally and the Rewatchables feed. So there you go. Until then, have a good weekend.